Does this shirt make my belly stick out?
Yep. So welcome. Yes, it does.
It's not the shirt.
Welcome to episode 7.
It's not the shirt.
That's a good number.
Is it 7?
Yeah.
Yep.
7's a...
Now, we've only, here's a secret. We've only released 3, and Monday, this following Monday will be 4. But we're actually, I'm sorry, we're recording number 7 right now. And you're watching it if you're seeing this.
Well, Brandon, since 7 is a symbolic number in the Bible of perfection,
Yeah, so
you should rein yourself in this episode.
you know what? Maybe I should.
I feel like naturally it's just going to be a more story-filled, like...
Oh yeah, it'll be
different
I think
focus.
my goal with this episode, if you haven't noticed, we'll introduce our guest in a moment. I'm hoping I talk less and he talks more
That's my goal.
Time
Yep.
will tell.
because he's our
I really don't like to hear you talk.
You know what? This Dad?
Roasting.
Dad, is that you?
So, Trey,
I'm very witty and sarcastic, so...
do you want to introduce our guest for everyone?
Sure.
I know you don't know him, but...
So this is Greg Murphy. He is a retired police officer of how many years?
20.
20 years.
How do you know him?
He is my father.
Lies.
If you can't tell by us sitting next to each other, the striking resemblance.
Yeah.
This is Trey at 58.
So
Good luck, man.
That was me at 28, 29.
But yeah, we're having him on. Gonna have
Except I
ask him
didn't
about
have-
his
I didn't have that.
the red beard.
Yeah, I couldn't do that.
You had the earrings, though, right?
I still can't do that. Nope.
You
No.
can't you
I
can't
didn't have
grow it.
earrings, so I was undercover.
You can't grow it, or you don't like it.
I can't grow it like that. It itches and
Yeah.
I get little bumps, and I'm just like, I get to the point where I can't stand it anymore, so I just shave it. I've had this for a long time.
Plus, if you've worked an occupation where you're supposed to shave, and being in the military, you're supposed to shave. It's like
Well,
it kind of instills in you too.
I had to shave when I was on patrol, and when I was in burglary. But when I went to enforcement and vice narcotics, I didn't
Yeah.
shave.
Undercover stuff
Yeah.
too.
Gotta blend in.
Right.
Gotta do that blending. Blending.
Blend it.
Excuse me.
Oh, let it fly.
Hmm?
Let it fly.
Burp.
So,
We're gonna have a burp counter eventually.
Ooh.
oh
Well,
no,
from what I
I
heard
win.
earlier, you win now.
I don't really make those noises very often.
Not from the top.
I can't do that.
Mine are
I've perfected it. It's 27 years of experience.
Yeah.
verbal noises for me. you know.
Came out
Did
the
you
womb
go to
burping.
camp a few times?
Yeah.
Did you ever win the burping contest?
I don't remember being in the burping contest.
I said I don't remember you being in one.
I don't
either.
think Spencer went the McRae week, and the other weeks didn't do that stuff.
Oh.
I went the same week you guys did normally.
Well, the first couple years we went to
Tidwell.
Tidwell's week,
Yeah.
which was
Okay.
different. They did a whole bunch of stuff different.
Yeah.
Any
Right.
Hoosier.
So I have
Who's the loser?
The boozer.
Oh.
like an icebreaker question, or I can just go straight into like.
Do we want to talk about how our week was, or we want to skip that?
Yeah, we
I
can
don't
do
really
that.
have anything to talk about in the week. I did want to start out with saying how I woke up this morning.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because were you guys surprised that I was awake?
Was it by a car that was really loud?
So,
Yes.
will you role play this? No, Greg, will you role play this with me, okay? You're me, and just be sleeping, okay? More of a smile, because I'm happy when I sleep. I'm going to be the noise.
Dreaming about puppies.
Beep, beep, beep. Beep, beep, beep. Ensue for an entire hour of just beep, beep. I wake up very angry. Beep. Yep. I sleep with my gun next to me, so you know I was holding it. Sorry.
I will
Beep
find
one
what
more
this beeping
time.
is.
It's today the day.
One more beep. I promise.
So after getting
Good thing
dressed,
it's not a CCW anymore.
yeah, I know, right?
But it is your house, so
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah, it was a back. Someone was doing like skid steer stuff. 2 houses down from where I was parked.
are you getting on people just because they're trying to work?
Yeah, so I went over there and I beat him up.
What time was it, though?
Huh?
What time was
It
this?
was like 7:38.
That's not bad.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
You just didn't like it.
You only
Yeah.
got so many daylight hours in the day. You got to start work early.
These guys don't know that I'm in my van sleeping right now.
I didn't think any of that. I was just annoyed that it was
you don't
happening.
have a do not disturb thing on your door
Right.
handle?
I should, honestly.
Oh, you could get like a intercom thing, like the police cars have. Like, please, I'm trying to sleep.
Yeah.
I also want to get like,
If
like
this van's are rocking,
yeah, you know how you have an address?
I'm alone.
You know, yeah, exactly. I'm having some fun with myself. I have a body pillow with all my friends.
Oh boy.
Oh man, you go
That's what
blind.
that was for.
You know how houses have addresses,
Yes.
Yeah.
numbers? I want to put that on the van.
That's why they make PO boxes. For
What's your
people like
address?
you.
I don't know, but it'd be funny.
What year is your van?
202.
So 0202 Blue Chevy Lane.
Okay, I like it.
Nice.
Or Big Blue Lane.
But if you
That's
really
what I
want
call
to
it.
send me a letter, PO box,
Yeah,
blah blah blah.
I don't want people to send me mail.
So you had a rough morning. How was your week?
Just work. Had my knee swelling up time to time. If I stand on it very long. I had knee surgery, or well, actually knee replacement surgery on November 14th. So I'm doing pretty well for only a few months out.
Pretty crazy.
Nice.
We thought he wasn't going to make it.
He's doing better than a lot of other people.
I'll tell you
that
the
get knee
story what
replacements.
led up to my knee later.
I like it, Trey.
Same work. We usually record our podcast on Friday nights, and then my place of employment kindly reminded me that we had some kind of team building exercise thing last night. So now we're doing it Saturday morning, which is fine. Just a little annoying.
How was your exercise?
Yeah, it's
Did you build teams?
the normal thing. Like, hey, we're a great team.
Did you do any
This is
jumping
what
jacks?
we're doing for the next year.
Did you do any jumping jacks at your exercise?
No, we had roosters.
You know what our team building exercise was for around Christmas for our guys?
What's that?
We went to an escape room and Brio at
Same
Easton
call.
Oh,
during work hours.
that's awesome.
I'm not saying I'm a big deal, but I'm not a small deal.
See, but that's how to actually like build a little bit of team building.
It was way more fun than I expected. I was going into it like bah humbug. I'm not gonna like this. I don't like people like whatever. Anyway, but okay,
Missed call.
decent work.
Pretty much.
I'll write these
Yeah.
down.
My week was normal. Work, and then I did have a shoot for a client, not this past week, but the week before.
A what for a client?
A shoot for a client,
A shoot?
a video shoot.
Oh,
Yeah,
gotcha.
like
He's thinking you killed a client.
videography lingo. You know,
right.
brushed
Yeah,
up on.
sorry.
Shoot, but my ammo is SD cards.
I recorded videos for a client the week before last, and then I got all those edited and done. And then last night at 7:00, I was downstairs cleaning the basement, and someone knocks on the door. Dog goes crazy, wants to shred whatever's there. Sierra was like, "Hey, someone's here. It's 2 Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, no.
Oh, great.
7:00 at night.
in our town?
Is that a thing?
No, I've never.
Oh, I haven't either.
I've lived
Now,
here all
this
my
is
life.
Oh.
not racist, but were they black or were they white?
It was 2 white women. I didn't think they were allowed to talk to men.
We have, well, Jehovah's Witnesses have changed their views.
They're all
on it.
Okay, so they told me they were Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
Latter-day
Saints.
Saints.
Isn't that
Jehovah's
Jehovah's Witness? Okay. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Wow.
they said, "Hey, do you have a moment to talk, or is now a good time to talk?" My dog sounds like she wants to eat someone.
Yeah.
Sierra's like not sure what's going on, so I'm like, "No, not really." And the other one's like, "Okay, is there a better time?" I said, "No, not really." So I just walked
Should've
away.
said this. Do you know that you're teaching a false religion?
I didn't want to get into it. I didn't have time and I didn't care enough. But my first thought was be like, "Well, here, this is what I believe and this is why."
Mm.
But I didn't.
You should have gone the
Didn't
other
care.
way.
I got in that conversation. I haven't come to my house, knocked on the door, and got in that conversation, and they're trying to tell me that, today's. They showed me some pictures. What's this picture look like? And it's people sharing crops and living harmoniously in a utopia, and
That's the Amish down the street.
they were talking. They're trying to get across is that the new heaven and the new earth is going to be peaceful, and I told him, I said, well, I don't think we're going to be living here on this planet. I said, I think we're going to be in a spiritual body. So I don't think that really applies, and that opened up the conversation, and then I said, well, you know that black people were not accepted in your religion until later on. I said, you guys were viewed as evil, as demons. And I said, so what changed? And they were like,
What?
so that's my thing is that, you know, if God's the same and in the Jehovah Witness religion, black people weren't accepted, then how
What's
all of a
new?
sudden are they now? You know, but when God accepts
They
everybody,
needed more members.
right, and who you get into the 144,000? Who's
Yeah.
the 144,000? You know, how do you know if you're
Eeny,
one
meeny,
of
miny,
one of
moe.
those? So it's just kind of ridiculous.
I agree.
So,
I'm
But I
learning
didn't care
things about Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't know anything about it.
well, if you're
Did you
gonna,
convert them?
No.
They're pretty strong in their faith.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
But that's kind of like Mormons, you know, to as crazy, in my opinion, as some of those beliefs are, you have to be strong to go.
Well,
with that.
I'm not into bashing other churches or religions or viewpoints, but there is a truth and there's only one truth. So it's up to you to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because you're told to study to show thyself approved to God. So you have to do your due diligence and find out. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to you. Don't listen to your preacher at church. Study for yourself. Figure it out. It's not that hard.
You can be your own God of your own world.
And that's Jehovah's Witnesses too.
That's Mormons too.
Yeah, you die, you have your own planet,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and your whole
Ball-
family's there
Dragon
with you.
Ball
So
Z.
how can you have your whole family with you?
You rule them.
But I'm going to die and have my own family too, and it just
It's the future. There's
And then
holograms.
Paradox.
Goku comes and he trains on your planet.
they're all just spiritual holograms. They're not your real fans.
Right? It's like Star
Spiritual
Wars.
holograms.
So you had an icebreaker.
Yeah. Do we want to do that?
yeah, sure.
I like
Let's get
breaking
off
ice.
religion.
It's kind of random. It has nothing to do with
With your dad?
with
Religion?
like the or
Sorry.
police questions. But I randomly thought of this. Which army do you guys think would win? The orcs and the bad faction, I'll call it, in Lord of the Rings, or the bad faction in Narnia? If both of those armies
don't-
were pitted against each other,
I don't remember what the one in Narnia is even like.
it's like the witch, and she's got the trolls, and there's all kinds of different creatures.
My heart tells me Lord of the Rings.
I think it would be a toss-up.
That's because I like Lord of the Rings more.
Wasn't the Narnia bad people like a much smaller group? I'm overthinking this, and I have barely seen any of those movies.
Based off the movie, yeah, I don't know about the book. I don't know if the book says like how big the army was, but it's definitely smaller scale.
Well, let's look at it this way: there are more wizards in one than there is in the other. You got one witch, but
That's
then you
true.
have a bunch of different wizards, and so I think the Narnia people lose.
I think so too. I think
Here's
the
my
orcs win.
take. You ready?
But Aslan could kill them all.
Here's my take. I don't remember the ones from Narnia, but I remember the ones from Lord of the Rings, so
They're pretty nasty.
they're pretty cool.
There's also millions of them.
Yep.
What was
so
your-
many.
And they're all like bubbly and misshapen.
Ew.
My kind of people.
It's because they're mutants.
It's my
Yep.
cousin.
I went back and forth, but Lord of the Rings has basically everything that Narnia has. Lord of the Rings has something that would go against it and probably win. So, probably Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I think Lord of the Rings would win.
One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness find them.
Amen.
Nerd.
You
Book
shall
of
not
Mormon.
pass.
Book of Mormon. Chapter 7. The Narnia days.
Paragraph 3, line 6.
LOTR, chapter 3.
Mm.
Lottery?
Love it. Cool.
So.
Is that everything? Is that was your?
Has the ice
icebreaker?
been broken?
Okay.
That was the
I think the
broken
ice is broken. Along with
Fantasy question.
along with my heart. So I did.
Processing.
What was it like raising Trey?
Actually, Debbie and I kind of talked about this yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Not Trey.
Sore
and-
subject.
Yeah, not Trey specifically, but just we were talking about our kids, and we went out to dinner last night, and we were just sitting there talking, and we were talking about a child that we know that the parents aren't real. They say yes to everything. They never tell the kid no.
Yikes.
But and the kid backtalked the mom, and and Debbie, my wife Debbie, is kind of like, that wouldn't have flown with me.
Trey's got a big red handprint.
Kid, backtalk me and hang up on me or on the phone or whatever. She was that wouldn't fly. But we never had problems with you guys like that. They were all good kids. Never really got into much. And we were talking about one of the podcasts that we were watching, and you made a comment of, I don't want to say I was coddled as a child, but I mean, you guys weren't coddled. You just, we taught you right from wrong. We taught you about respect, and
right.
The teachers at school, and they're always like, I wish I had a whole class full of Treys, Drews, or Keegans, and it's just because they were good kids.
We need air purifiers, but they'd be good.
And I think the one principal said, I can tell your dad's a cop by the way you act. But
what principal was that?
He's like respectful.
Your middle school principal, the black guy. What's his name? Real nice guy, big guy.
Mr. Young.
Yeah, he moved. He went to that. He left there and went to that alternative school.
Yeah,
that was right down there. It's not there anymore, but
he was a good principal.
Yeah, he was the one I went in when Keegan was getting picked on by this kid named Malik. Malik would always punch him in the stomach, and call him fat or whatever. And Keegan was just, came home and he was just, if you know Keegan, he's not
expressive.
Yeah, he's not expressive, and it bugged him, but he really didn't say anything about it. And I was talking to him about it, and I was like, he was getting fed up with it. I said, are you bigger than this kid? And he's like, yeah. And I asked him how big the kid was. And I said, the next time he punches you in the stomach, I said, tell him, not to do it anymore. I said, and just shove him into the floor or something like that. And tell him you've had enough of it. And
poor little Malik went flying.
Well, he didn't do anything like that. But I'm like, you can't just let somebody pick on you. So I went to the school and talked to the principal. And I told him, I said, listen, I've told Keegan that not to let this kid do that to him anymore. And I said, Keegan's pretty reserved. And I said, but if he gets mad, out comes the hawk.
Yeah.
Cord coming at you.
So, and I told him, I said, I've given Keegan permission to defend himself against this kid. And the principal goes, I know who it is. And I said, who do you think it is? He goes, it's Malik. So he knew exactly who I was talking about.
Right.
So the kid was already a problem. And so the principal took care of it because I said, listen, Keegan gets mad, he's going to hurt the kid.
Probably break him in half.
And you probably need to get a handle on it right now because I've told him, that he doesn't have to put up with it anymore. So. But that's, getting back to the question, we never had problems with him. But Trey was hilarious as a little kid. He was just all over the place. 1,000 miles an hour all the time.
He was a worm.
So have you?
He was a worm. Yeah, when I blew my knee out the first time, I had this big, long, giant brace that covered my whole leg.
Yeah.
So I was laying on the couch, and Trey wanted me to wrap him up in the brace. So he's like all wrapped up in the brace, and he's probably 3 years old, and I said, who are you, little boy? He goes, I'm a worm. So he was the one with the imagination. He wanted to go into the TV and talk to Pocahontas.
Yep.
There was this thing he called the La La, which was this portal in the wall that he wanted to go into, and he had these two imaginary friends, bus guy and girl.
And they would go into the portal. And
they'd go into the portal, and bus guy was all deformed, and
he was like
mutated, and girl was, I don't know.
If you remember the show Kablam on Nickelodeon, it's a really old show, and it was almost like a Robot Chicken kind of thing, where it's like animated like action figures. And there was a guy on there called... It was either Melty Man or Melted Man or something. He was like a melted action figure. That's what guy looked like. Just like a melted guy.
That's hilarious.
Well, plus when he would get a high fever, he'd have fever dreams. So he'd be asleep. I remember one time he thought all these Pokemon were in his bed trying to get him. So.
Stop it, Pikachu.
Yeah, he was, but they were like evil trying to get him. So yeah, Trey had an imagination.
Have you seen every episode
Of what?
of our podcast?
Yeah, so far.
So did you learn about the story he never told you?
Oh, the house.
Oh,
Can I
no.
say that name out
We'll
loud?
beep it
No,
out.
you didn't.
We can redact it.
You
Yep.
redact it.
That'll be our first redacted
Yeah,
statement.
at
It wasn't for me.
at P's house.
Peace out.
Yo, what up, P?
Yeah, we talked about that last night too. Yeah. But it was. I mean, you didn't do anything awful. You know,
At least you didn't like hit and run
I'm
someone.
sure
That'd
there's a
been-
little bit of smooching and stuff going on, but
As teenagers do.
if you're anything like me when I was a teenager,
A little bit of crisp high fives, you know,
a million of them.
if you can do that. Oh yeah, that's what I would do with my $1 million.
but no, we didn't. And getting back to Trey, when you went to that video audio recording school down there in Chillicothe, yeah,
Audio workshop.
audio workshop. You know, Trey was, if I can tell that story,
Mm.
was getting peer pressure from the guys that were there to go out and drink and smoke weed. So Trey
Yeah.
calls me and he's like, Dad, I want to fit in and I want to hang out with these guys, but I don't want to go out and do that stuff. And my advice to him was, well, I said, Trey, you're old enough to make your own decisions. I said, but you got to remember whose man you are. And he goes, what? I said, whose man are you? And he gave me the right answer. He said, well, God's man. I said, all right. So you got to make decisions based upon that. So that's what we tried to teach our kids, to have their own faith, to know who they are, and making the decision to become a Christian, what that means. And you got to live your life by that code. So, because once you get out of the house, and I have no control over what you do, I have no influence. I still have an influence, but not like I do when you're living in my house.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Yes.
So in other words, horrible kids. They
awful.
bad adults now.
They were always going to church,
Yep.
hanging out with other Christian kids. I mean, it was just horrible.
They were just they were hooked
Yeah.
on.
Phonics.
They were
No man,
hooked
I was
on
gonna say hooked
phonics.
on
We had that
godly
game.
love, but you
Yeah.
ruined the joke by interrupting it.
We had hooked on phonics.
We did.
Wow.
What's one story you want to hear?
I was gonna ask Trey if he has a favorite story of his dad that he could tell.
And see how accurate he tells it?
No, that his dad could tell.
Oh, okay.
Well, I always think of how you blew your knee out,
Okay.
and I always think of the prostitute that jumped the fence.
That's a funny one.
You talking about the midget?
Yeah. So that'd probably be a
The
good
little
one.
people.
Because there was another one that was not funny, but well, I'll tell you the knee story. Back in 1996, November 9th, I think it was I can't remember who it was I have to look on a calendar and see, but it was my birthday. So and it was after midnight, so I think it was the 10th when it actually happened. But anyway, I was working special duty, and it's special duties when you work as a police officer and you do security somewhere, direct traffic. And so I had this job because I worked at Big Bear, and then when I'd get off at Big Bear for special duty, I'd go right next door to this nightclub and work security for the nightclub. I've been working there for a long time. And there was this partner that I had there that a lot of people said, don't work with him. He's trouble, blah, blah, blah. But, I'm like, I can rein him in. But he was there to pick up chicks. That was his whole goal. So he
Great.
wasn't really interested in.
Probably worked pretty good.
Good sign.
Yeah. So anyway, we're working there one night, and it was a hip hop club, and there'd be factions from different parts of the city, and there'd be fights from time to time. But this night, there's some people from out of town, and it was just a gigantic melee inside the bar.
Jeez.
And we're supposed to work outside the bar. You're not supposed to work inside the bar. So you handle stuff that's outside the bar. So if the bouncers throw somebody out, then you deal with them. You're not really supposed to go in there and be a bouncer for the club. So they call, and they're like, hey, you got to stop?
Nope.
Oh. Big fight inside. My partner runs in there, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And so I go in, and I can't find him anywhere. And there's this gigantic pile of people in the middle of the floor fighting. So I thought he was in the middle of that mix. So I start pulling people off, and pulled this one guy off, and he jumps right back in. So I pulled him off again, and when I pulled him off, he probably weighed 65 pounds. And
Me.
at that time, I was like 205, and I was in pretty good shape. And so I grabbed him in a full Nelson, pulled him off, and he kicked off the wall. And when he kicked off the wall, we spun 180 degrees, but my knee stayed stationary and just went. So my ACL, my ACL was completely torn. My PCL was partially torn. My meniscus was shredded. There are 2 tendons on the outside. I can't remember the names that run on either side of your knee. Ligaments that run on either side of your knee that stabilize your knee. I had tears in those. So everything in my knee was basically either partially torn or completely torn. It took me 9 months to get back to work. So had to have surgery, had my ACL replaced, and and when the fight happened, when you blow your knee out, your quad shuts down. So my leg just shut completely down, so I couldn't stand on my leg. So I fall to the floor, and the guy that I'd grabbed was now trying to stomp me in the head. So I'm like blocking his stomps with my forearms because I had big bruises on my forearms where he was trying to stomp me in the head. And my first thought was, okay, everybody's going to start, the cops down, let's beat the crap out of him.
Here's our chance.
So the guy was trying to stomp me in the head, so I grabbed his foot and I pulled him down to the floor so I could, my thought was I got to even the fight out. And I've got some decent ground fighting skills. So I pulled him down to the floor, and I'm kind of wrestling him on the floor. And then I start seeing people gather around me, and I'm like, all right, here it goes. So I'm unsnapping my gun because I'm going to start going, bah, bah. I'm going to start just blasting people because, I'm in a pretty
Not going to die for it.
pretty bad situation to where, I'm going to get beat to death. And next thing I know, people are helping me up, and what I thought was going to happen wasn't happening. So they helped me up, get me to the bar where I could sit on the bench, and, the fight's breaking up. There are cops coming from all over the city because it was a citywide officer in trouble call. So there are cops coming from everywhere, and there's big fights out in the parking lot, and, they arrest the guys in the back of the cruiser. And so he's in the back of the cruiser kicking the window out. So I hop on one foot to the cruiser and take my mace out. And he's sitting, I'm just like, and back then we had CS mace, it's CS gas in it. So it's really, really
The good stuff.
nasty. Yeah. I mean, it's it's a vomiting agent. I mean, it's an irritant. It's bad stuff.
Dang, I wish they still used that.
Well, they don't because it was flammable. So if you scored somebody in the face that had a cigarette, they'd catch their head on fire. So,
like I said, I wish they still used that.
well, you could also, if there was a big fight, I mean, it's a pretty good tool. You could spray the ground, and the fumes would disperse the crowd because it's an irritant.
Yeah.
So anyway, spray him. He's busted the glass out of the cruiser, and squad shows up. I go to the hospital, and they X-ray my knee, and when I showed up, when the nurses found out that it was a cop with a knee injury, they had like a table laying out, had catheters and everything, and I said, "It's my knee, not my pee-pee. Keep that away from," So that's how I blew my knee out, and it was a pretty bad injury for my knee, and plus, I had I didn't really think about it at the time. But now that I'm older and I think about it, it's a pretty hairy situation that could have gone really bad. And
for sure.
And, but it wasn't something to where I was like losing sleep, going having nightmares of being beat to death or anything. I'm just not geared that way. So I find out later on there was this guy that I talked to all the time. They call him Big Money Tony. He was a drug dealer. That now had a motorcycle shop.
Was he an informant? You said
no, he wasn't. He wasn't an informant. But we just had conversations in a different world. in a different world, we probably would have been pretty good friends.
Yeah.
But we're on opposite sides of
Mm-hmm.
the. But he was a decent guy. His kid got killed when he was 5 years old because they did a drive-by shooting on his house and shot his kid in the head.
Oh my gosh.
And we talked about that, and he was like, he blamed himself for that because of the life he was living, and So anyway, he's the one that grabbed the dude and held the dude for the police because he respected me. So he'd got arrested again, so I was going to go show up at his parole hearing and tell the story, and and maybe get him paroled.
Yeah.
But he already got paroled, so he was fine. But I don't know where that guy disappeared to. I never saw him again after I quit working that club, and it's just because I treated him respectfully, he treated me respectfully. People that when they did something where they got kicked out of the club, knew that they were gone for a couple of weeks and they couldn't come back, and so there was a mutual respect there. So I didn't treat people bad. I didn't. There was a couple times I had to tune some people up, but it's just the name of the game. Being a cop. Nah, not really. I never really.
Sorry, that's me. If I was,
Well, in my whole 20 years as being a cop, I never punched anybody in the face. Now I kneed a dude in the face once, but that was a different situation.
He needed to hear that.
Yeah, he needed to hear that. But that was over. We were trying to arrest the guy for selling crack, and a gun dropped on the ground, and
Ooh.
my partner had done a couple of they're called brachial plexus strikes, like in this area and in the shoulder, and they weren't working. So I'm like, told my partner, said,
Watch
back
out.
up, and I just grabbed the guy, and, and he made this noise. He goes, and that was the end of it.
And it worked.
Well, he tried to file police brutality charges on me, but Internal Affairs didn't even interview me. They just read my report, because I wrote very detailed reports, and asked me if I had anything to add to the report. And I said no. They said, fine, we don't need to talk to you. And it didn't go anywhere. But that's how I blew my knee out. And then it just slowly got worse and worse over the years, arthritis. And back in March, I was just walking down the steps, and I tore my ACL again, tore my meniscus, and I fractured my fibula all at the same time.
Oh.
And, tried to recover from that. Spent money on stem cells, big waste of money. Don't
Really?
ever do it. And just ended up having knee replacement surgery to fix all the issues with it. So I'm glad I did it. I mean, it clicks a little bit and pops a little bit right now, but
You got 20 more fresh years, right?
yeah, hopefully. The doctor said I should have my knee for the rest of my life, as long as I don't try to destroy it.
So I have a question. Where was your partner during all that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too.
I don't know. He showed up at the end. I think he was in the back with some girl doing something.
Mouthtown.
Oh no.
Mouth down.
Jeez.
Sorry.
Probably.
I'm sorry. I just got to bring it back.
Oh, he ended up getting fired. So
I imagine.
not
He
out of
didn't
that.
sound like a very
Not
good-
out of that situation, but he had a lot of.
Demons.
He had a lot of. Well, he had some domestic violence stuff, and
Sounded like he
Yeah.
let the power get to his head.
he was just an idiot.
So did they like call mom as soon as
They called your mom. He called mom, actually.
your partner?
Yeah. He's like, and because Debbie told me, he goes, no, don't panic. Greg's been hurt.
Jeez.
He's in the hospital. And your mom's just like, just tell me what's wrong with him.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, he blew his knee up pretty bad. And she had you guys, this is like 3:00 in the morning, so she decided that she was not going to like wake grandma and grandpa up and take you guys there and stuff. And
Well, I was like,
I was 96.
You were like 2.
So you were.
You were
yeah,
fresh,
I was like
bro.
2, which means if Drew was born, he was like a newborn.
Drew was a baby because
Yeah.
I remember being at home, him trying to crawl off the bed, and I had my knee in the thing. I grabbed him for a crawl off the bed. I'm like, ah!
Dang it, Drew.
So Drew was like, he's like, I'm gonna crawl off the bed. I'm gonna grab him by his diaper. Luckily, he only weighed like 2 ounces, so no
Silly
big deal.
Drew.
But yeah,
baby.
you were little, and it so So after I got released from the hospital, I had a cruiser take me over to where my truck was at. So, my legs like in this brace. So I'm driving the truck in the center of the seat,
Nice.
home.
Oh, jeez.
And so it was a challenge to get home, but it wasn't like I was shot and
Right. She
had
was
to
probably
have
relieved when he
surgery
said,
or-
he blew his knee out.
Yeah, so
Right.
it was,
It's a lot better than.
yeah.
He
But
was stabbed 3 times.
Right.
But it was still, a pretty bad injury that took me a long time to heal from. And
Yeah.
actually, the knee replacement has been a better recovery than that.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
even though there's a giant scar on my leg.
So I heard mention of a midget hooker or a midget stripper story.
No, she wasn't a prostitute.
Or prostitute, yes.
Oh.
Sex
She
worker.
probably was a prostitute, but
Was it proven?
I was working in what's called a community response team, to where we worked in a cruiser, but we didn't take dispatch runs. We just did street level crime, and the whole concept of community policing is, address the street level crime and run the criminals out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, like a
Basically,
grassroots improvement.
Yeah. So there was this girl and this guy on the side of the road, and I had another partner that I really didn't like him very well. He was kind of racist.
You had some bad luck with partners.
Well, sometimes you don't have a choice on who you get to work with.
Right.
There's a 10-man team, and other people didn't want to work with him, so I'm like, well, I'll work with him because I can work with anybody because I can rein you in if I have to.
Oopsie.
So he wants to stop and interview these people, so we stop, and you can stop and talk to anybody. He's like, what are you guys up to, and what's your name, and all this stuff. And I could tell the way she was positioning herself, she was looking for an escape route. So I'm like, okay, she's going to run. And I was getting heavier at that time, because my knee was destroyed, and and plus the last year I was on, I had Lyme's disease, so I had a lot of muscle pain, a lot of muscle weakness, and I couldn't stand, or so it was Lyme's disease is pretty nasty. There's only one type of antibiotic that gets rid of it, so
Wow.
I had it for years, didn't even know.
Mm.
So anyway, she's looking for an out. I'm like, she's going to run. And she was short. She was probably 4'11", if she was that. And she was proportioned, but she kind of just had, little people features,
Is her head
Okay.
really big?
Well,
you said she's proportioned. Never mind.
yeah, but she still was just kind of just compact. I'll
Yep.
put it that way. So he's running her ID, and she takes off running, and she's like, running like a midget would run. I'm sorry, a little person.
Wee man.
She's running like a wee man.
Mhm.
Yeah, pretty
Rest
much
in
is
peace.
what it looked like to me. So and I see this fence, and the fence is like 3 feet. I'm like, she's not going to get over the fence. She's going to have to stop. She hits that fence, hops over the fence, just like a,
Like a track star.
I was like, what?
The little bulldog just.
So my partner, he was only 5'4". All right, he was a little
So
man.
he's like my height.
Nah, he was shorter than you.
I'm 5'5".
Are you 5'5"? You don't seem that short.
It's because I'm really strong.
He's a big 5'5".
'Cause I think it's because you have a high head.
Yeah.
But anyway, he goes to chase her. So she jumps the fence. He jumps the fence, and I'm laughing so hard I can't run. I can't do it. I'm just like, this is hilarious. And we didn't have body cams and stuff because it would have made a great body cam. But he grabs her, catches her, and I get over there, and I'm helping. I'm just laughing my butt off because you got two midgets running, one chasing the other one, and I was just like, "This is hilarious." And to give you an idea, I'm not going to say his name because he'll never watch this, but he one of the guys when I was in Vice Narcotics called him Short Stack, and he didn't like that at all. But he was one of these guys that knew everything.
Yeah.
And he would have to let you know he knows everything. And we were doing a surveillance operation one night, and this is when they put the cameras in downtown. One of the guys ran a red light, and the camera took a picture of the car. Well, our tags come back not in file on our undercover car, so they were never going to figure out who it was. And one of the guys, yeah, they just took my gun already. They just took my picture. Uh-oh, I'm going to get a ticket. You know, and being a police officer, in the scope of your duties, you can make minor traffic infractions, so don't freak out. So, it's more or less a rolling stop is what he did. So that officer that I'm talking about gets on the radio and goes, well, technically, you know that you're supposed to come to the stop bar and make a complete stop before you proceed through the, you know, and we're like, dude,
Okay,
we're all cops. We know this.
Right.
And somebody said, okay, you know, whatever, short stack, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, I'm just telling you guys the way the law is written. And I got on the radio. I said, click. I said, don't worry about it, guys. I said, he's just mad because the midget beat him out of the job sitting in the light taking the pictures. And he did not like that at all. You know, and so needless to say, he wasn't crazy about me.
That's hilarious.
But I rode with him one night, and he pulls his car over for a license plate light. And I'm like, what are you pulling him over for? And it was a tricked out SUV. So he was profiling the guy. You know, I mean, you can profile. I mean, I can't profile you just because you're white.
What about fat?
No.
Okay.
But I can take
There's context clues. I mean,
I can take everything into consideration.
right.
You know, like we used to watch this when I was in narcotics or SRB. We used to, cause we did a lot of street level narcotics. There was this one payphone that we watched on Weber, because we knew if you had out of county tags, mainly from Southern Ohio, and you were stopping at this phone, you were hooking up to get some heroin, especially if you were white. So we would take all those factors into consideration and profile them because, you know, but profiling someone for race, religion, sexual orientation, solely for one of those purposes alone,
Right.
that's discrimination. That's against the law. But you can take all the factors into consideration and build what you call reasonable suspicion.
Yeah.
And, you know, just follow everything. But anyway, he pulls this car over, and the guy had a license plate light. And one thing cops do too is if they're suspicious of a car, you know, they can run your tag anytime they want to. So he's running the tag, and nothing came back on the tag, but he still wanted to pull the car over. One, because it was a black guy. And I'm like, dude, I said, this is wrong. He goes, well, I bet there's dope in that truck. And I'm like, whatever. So he pulls it over, and I said, I'll tell you what, man. I said, this is your puppy. I said, you can talk to the guy. I said, I'm going to stand at the back of the car, and I'm just going to be here in case something happens. So he goes up and talks to the guy and says, hey, I pulled you over for no license plate light, which was a lie. And I'm just back here going, man, this dude is an idiot, you know, just not following the law at all. And he asked the guy, he goes, well, can I search your vehicle? And the guy's like,
right off the rip.
yeah. The guy's like, sure. You know, so
Jeez.
the guy comes back to the back. I said, just come back here with me. And we had business cards. And I said, dude, I said, here. I said, if you've got anything about what happened here tonight, I said, this is my card. Because I had no problems with going to IA and saying this guy's a jerk.
Yeah.
You know, no problem at all. And a lot of cops probably won't like that, but you can't be that way.
Well, I mean, if no one's willing to do that, you're never going to get better, and you're always.
But anyway,
gonna
the
have
guy
bad
comes
cops.
back to the car and he's limping, and I'm like, I said, what's wrong with your leg? I said, he goes, oh, I got a prosthetic. And I said, what happened? And he goes, well, I was in Iraq and I lost my leg.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Seriously?
that even made it worse. And we get in the car, and this guy he was an ex-Marine too. He had nothing on the guy. And I told him, I said, dude, I said, what you did was completely wrong. And he goes, well, I'm just trying. I said, you can't fish like that. I said, not only would it get you in trouble, but it get me in trouble. And I said, I'll tell you right now, this is the last time I ever work with you. I said, I'm not ever working with you again. And I said, and that guy was a Marine. I said, and you were a Marine. I said, I don't care if he had 10 pounds of weed in the back of the car. He deserves to smoke it because he gave his leg for this country. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
and I never spoke to that guy again, never worked with him. And if I was like told or signed, I said, I'm not doing it, Sarge. You need to put me somewhere else or I'll work by myself. I said, I'm not working with him. And to this day, the guy's just, he came to work one day with a black eye. And I'm like, what, how'd you get a black eye? He goes, I got in a fight with my stepson. I said, and I'm going, okay, you just admitted to domestic violence and that you punched your stepson, he punched you back. And I'm going, I'm just like, what a just.
Why is he even a police officer?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's the minority. There are bad cops, just like there are bad people
humans
in every job.
Yeah.
There are guys that are cops that never should have been a cop, but they made it through the process somehow. Save it until we start recording.
It's recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can sense when he presses the recording.
Oh, you're not Spidey sense, but
He's
you're
got one of
Just
those.
for cameras.
video sense.
Yeah.
He's got the
Video
Elon.
sense.
He's got the Elon Musk chip.
Yeah.
Neuralink.
Yeah.
Yep. Neural stink.
Anyway, you remember something?
All I remember is you telling the story about, I think you were undercover and this like doped out prostitute got in your car. And she was like really unattractive, like melty kind of.
Melty?
That's not the word he used, but
melty.
What does that
you
mean?
know, like when they're on drugs a lot and their skin kind of just
Well,
stretches.
there are two stories that come to.
That's all. I don't even know when you told me that one.
There's two stories that come to light. Now, sorry for those that don't like graphic content, but this is going to be graphic content.
Your discretion advised.
Yeah.
Like,
If
What?
there are
That's-
children in the room, please
oh, this is not a.
put your
children
fingers in their
podcast.
ears.
That's the nature of the job.
Yeah. Well,
Sometimes.
we were doing a prostitution. I didn't like picking up prostitutes
Yeah,
because
I
they're
wouldn't
nasty.
like either.
Dirty.
So I did it when we had special operations and we were doing complaints and doing projects where we'd arrest 40 or 50 of them in a weekend.
Good lord.
It's a lot.
I
dude.
did it then because we had to do it.
Yeah.
But so we were working an operation because when I was in Vice concentrated on prostitution and call girls and escorts and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also responsible for liquor enforcement, cigarette sales, because you can't sell like these little markets.
Single
will sell
packs or-
single cigarettes. You can't do that. It's against the law. Lottery, and we also were responsible for narcotics sales out of liquor establishments. So there was me and another guy. That's what we concentrated on. We concentrated on narcotic sales out of bars.
Yeah.
So we were complaints. So that's what we did because those are felonies. Prostitution's a misdemeanor. They're out, given a summons. They don't
go
even go to
back
jail.
and do it again.
They're out the next day. Plus
Wham bam, thank you, ma'am.
if you got yeah, exactly. Plus, if you got 10 guys and you got 10 undercover cars and everybody's picking up prostitutes, then
Right.
they tend to figure out who everybody is.
Well,
and
these
know what
guys
the
never
cars look
take 'em.
like, and don't get in the green station wagon. That's a cop. So to me, it didn't make sense. And maybe only do it during projects. But anyway, one of my buddies had picked up a girl, and he said, "Hey, I want you to pick up this girl again, and we'll get her twice, and maybe get her to stay in jail or whatever." So pick this girl up. She is high off her rocker. So she gets in the car and she's talking. She's also and she starts stripping down naked in the seat.
This is the one.
In the
And
back
I'm
seat?
going, what in the world is she doing? She starts stripping down naked. Then she starts playing with herself, laying back in the seat,
Oh.
and making noises. And then she passes out. So she's naked in my seat, passed out, going, with her hand between her legs. And I was like, this has got to be unreal. So I pull over in this parking lot and I open the door and I said, "Hey," I said, "get out of my car." She's like, "Well," I said, "get out." She goes, I said, "I don't want nothing from you." I said, "You can't even stay awake." So she gets out, and we had enough there to charge her again for prostitution. But so she's like half dressed, gets out of my car, and I drive away, and I meet up with my partner. I said, "Dude, she is a mess." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to have a cruiser come arrest her." So he had a cruiser come over and pick her up, and because it was kind of unsafe to leave her out in that condition.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Man.
on that west side of the city, something could happen to her. So we felt it was best just to arrest her. So that's what we did. You know, get her off the street for the night, because if something happened to her, now you're kind of responsible for.
Cost it or whatever.
Well, that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand about policing is once you take somebody into custody, you're responsible for their well-being. So you're kind of obligated to make sure that they're safe for that night. You know, if they come out the next day and get killed or something, then that's on them. But so we arrested her. But the other one that you might be talking about that I might have told you was picked up this girl, this prostitute, get the elements for the arrest. Identify myself. She grabs my badge and tries to leave the car. So I grab my badge from her. I don't want to have my badge. And she tries to scratch my face. So I go back and she gets out and she runs. And we were back behind a Pizza Hut. And there was a car wash. It was actually it was in Whitehall. Picked her up in Columbus, ended up stopping in Whitehall. So she gets out to run, and she runs into this like little tree line that they have between buildings sometimes in the cities, and it's all those trees with the briars.
Ooh.
Oh.
So she runs into that, and I grab her and pull her back, and the briars just like slice her face. And I'm like, oh, great. So I got her, have to call them, not wanting to get her blood on me.
Right.
You know. So I had to call a squad. Whitehall came over and, you know, talked about everything that was going on. And so we got her to the hospital, get her cleaned up. No, I don't think she went to the hospital. I think the squad just they're kind of like
Patched
superficial scratches. And, you know.
Yeah.
So summoned her out, you know, and let her go on her way. But I just, prostitution is just a nasty, nasty business. Had to pick up a she-he one time. That was not fun. Yeah.
You want to talk about it?
No, I'm kind of traumatized.
Yeah.
No,
Well, we're here for you, man.
It's again, graphic content. So it was Ohio and 17th, I think was the area. I can't remember the exact location. But the prostitutes that were there were men dressed as women. So we had complaints about it. So we were up there working that area. And, you know, you drive by and you make eye contact and the person, you know, looks at you and waves you back in the alley, and then you pull back in the alley. And, you know, I'm driving by and this she
Individual.
transgender, should use proper.
Thank you.
Her pronouns are she, he, and
Them. I meant to ask you what your pronouns were.
She, he, and me. But anyway, drive by
That's
the
the
guy,
name of the
and the
episode.
guy looks at me. He goes, I'm like, "What?"
You got to be like.
Yeah. So you
Yeah,
got to
it's
be like,
yeah, it's like
I got you.
So
Oh,
I pick the
no.
guy up. The guy gets in the car and he's going. I'm like, oh man, don't do that. I can't drive. You know, when you touch my leg.
So difficult.
Yeah. So because they want to touch,
Yeah.
you know, you're like, no. You know, so
Give me some time, buddy.
well, they call that the cop check. They think if
Oh.
they grab your junk that you're not a cop.
There's some bold cops out there.
Well, I would never. There were guys that would let them touch their
Proceed.
stuff. I'm like, no. You know, that's not.
That's your line.
That no, you
See
don't
this
have,
freckle?
You do
You
not
don't go
have
past
to
this
go that
freckle.
far. So anyway, that's another story. Not about me, but about someone else. The same cop that I don't like. That
Oh no.
Oh, he did.
no.
Okay.
yeah, the guy was just. Yeah, he's in SWAT now.
Oh.
So anyway,
Redacted.
you know, the guy's trying to you know, touch me, and I'm like, no, I can't concentrate. Wait till. You know, he's like, well, I know a place we can go. And I'm like, no. I said, I got a place. That was our staging area. I was headed straight to the staging area. Yeah, you're under arrest. But
Quit feeling me up.
yeah, exactly. But he goes, you know who I am, what I am, don't you? I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you know, I'm a man. I'm transforming. You know, I can't remember the term back then. But
Transitioning.
transitioning. That's what he said. Transitioning into a woman. And I said, well, your mouth works, doesn't it? And he's like, oh, yeah. I said, okay. That's all I need to know. So I'm just like,
That's my philosophy.
inside, I'm vomiting. I'm
Right.
vomiting in my mouth,
Right.
and going, I'm never doing this again.
Right.
And it was the only time
That's
ever
what he was
picked-
saying too.
Yeah. It's the only time I ever picked up a she-he. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. It was just too uncomfortable for me.
That
I
would
mean,
be
the
so
regular
difficult.
prostitution was bad enough.
Yeah.
Right.
But so and we even had to have a female come search him.
Really? What year was that?
This
Roughly.
was in. Trying to think, was it SRB or was it Vice? I think it was Vice. So it was early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
so anyway, it was very uncomfortable. I'm
So the
like,
chick had to search the dude.
yeah.
That sucks.
So I was well. He had boobs from taking estrogen
Mhm.
shots.
Breasts.
Yeah. Now I'm sure we paid for that. Taxpayers. So
But he had testy breasties too.
Huh?
I just made that up. Sorry.
well, what you're talking about with testosterone is that is a side effect because actually testosterone therapy increases your estrogen production.
Talking about gynecomastia? Is that what we're gonna
Oh boy.
Yeah. So that's part of what that's a side effect from it.
do? Yeah.
So you have to take an estrogen. I've taken testosterone, so I have to take an estrogen because I'm prone to higher levels of estrogen with the testosterone.
Yeah.
So I take an estrogen blocker. But I've been off. I stopped taking testosterone before my surgery, and I haven't been back on it.
All testy, no esty.
Yeah, my testosterone's like not even there. It's like 46, which
Mhm.
should be in the 800s. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, just like, and it's not an ED issue.
I don't think it's uncommon either for
Well,
a
see,
lot of.
my doctor told me is ED issues are more of a circulation problem, not really a testosterone problem.
Yeah.
Testosterone is really not the sex drug.
Right.
It's just,
Mm.
it helps with your libido, but it's not the
It's not like a
be all and
mechanical-
end all for
Mhm.
it. Yeah. So anyway, just
Yep.
prostitution is a nasty.
For everyone.
Well, MRSA is just so rampant in prostitutes.
That's the worst of my worries if that's where I'm going.
Well, it's the easiest thing to catch.
Yeah, but
The smell, MRSA is just like a rotting flesh. I mean, it's bad.
Oh, like
Well,
zombie.
getting on to what you're talking about, you don't want those people touching you. The same guy. There was a big problem in Vice. There was a big meeting, and they were coming up with this no touch policy, meaning you can't let them touch you.
Okay.
But that's because you could take part. You can have sexual contact and some sexual conduct to get the elements for the crime, but it wasn't necessary.
right.
You don't. If
You don't have to.
If you were able to articulate, because when I first went over there, and the Vice unit in Columbus is gone now. They got rid of it because that one Vice officer that killed that girl in the back seat. Now, why you're in the back seat, I have no idea. But there's no need, because to me, when I went up there, they were like, "Hey, we've got these pre-written U-10-100s, which was your arrest report," and it was like, such and such time, such and such date, such and such. Just a really bullet statement, generic. U10 was like maybe 4 sentences. And I looked at that going, this doesn't even give all the elements. Like, oh, well, it's just, I said, no. So when I would pick up a prostitute, I would say such and such date, such and such time. I'm headed eastbound on Sullivan Avenue. I look to my right and I see a female, white,
Very detailed.
blah, blah, blah. She makes eye contact with me, motions me to go back to the alley. I go around the block, pull back in the alley. She walks up to the car and she says, are you looking for a date, thing? And I said, yeah. I said, she goes, well, what'd you have in mind? And I said, well, would state a sexual act. And she'd be like, okay, that sounds good to me. And, get in and at that point it's obvious it's prostitution.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't
You
walk
know,
yourself out of that.
You kind of know there's going to be an exchange. They wanted you to get a dollar amount, and you'd
So-
say, "Well, what?" I'd be like, "Well, what's this going to run me?" And they go, "Well, I can't. I'm not going to talk about the price yet, but I'll take a tip." So now we've talked about money.
Right. Is that like
So-
their way of trying to avoid it? Like if it goes to court?
They think
Okay.
that if they don't say $20, that they're not going to get charged.
Did they focus on the more expensive ones and then leave the cheap ones?
The cheap ones,
Like that one was $300. We gotta get her. She's premium.
Sometimes they give you a discount if you were cute. So anyway, we were already talking about money and exchange.
Right. It was
So
clear.
you got them. So there's no need to go any further than that. You've got what you need. But there were guys that wanted to get a dollar amount, specific dollar amount, and they wanted to, this one guy that I was talking about before wanted to let him touch his junk. I'm like, dude, she's touched 50 other guys' junk through the night, and you're going to let her touch your junk, and then you're going to go home and pass that on to your wife? I said, that's crazy. I said, there's no need to let anybody touch you ever.
It's a lot of risk for no reward.
Yeah, so it's just it's articulation, being able to write a verbal picture, a story of what happened is the biggest plus and skill to have as being a cop. You got to be able to articulate what happened, and for somebody to look at it and read it and go, oh yeah,
Clearly understand.
that's what was going on. I see it, So.
Ugh.
But that's when people ask me about what's it like to be a cop. I'm like, do you like to write? Because you arrest somebody, that's your 5% excitement, and now guess what? You have 2 hours of paperwork you got to do. So you better like to be able to write and to look through the Ohio Revised Code and figure out the right charge. And then there's legal jargon you have to use, to wit henceforth unto, all this legal stuff that you got to write when you write a charge up. So
Makes me want to light myself on fire thinking about it.
So I have two questions. One's really simple and one's more complex. I'll ask the simple one, and then someone else can ask or have a story or whatever. And I've seen videos explaining it, but I haven't watched them. Why do cops put their hand on the back, like your tail light or your back bumper or your trunk when they walk up?
that's kind of a...
Is it like an old school thing that's not a thing?
Yeah. I mean, to see if the trunk is latched and, if there's somebody in the trunk that's going to jump out at you, or you've got a body back there, or, there's a whole lot of different theories to it, or you check the trunk and it comes open and now you see, 10 pounds of marijuana or cocaine in the back.
A couple Mac 10s.
So it's just kind of a safety thing to check the trunk to...
Precautionary.
Yeah. It's like, never go past the door without checking the room, because you never know who's going to be in there. It's kind of that concept.
Yeah.
So, but,
Easy.
it's just something they teach you to do in the academy. But I never walked up to the driver's side. I always walked to the passenger side. One, because it takes me out of the street. Two, they're not expecting it.
Right.
So if I come over to the passenger side and you got a gun right here, then I can see what you're doing. So that's why I always went to the passenger side.
I think I know the answer to this question. But for those listening, do you think you could be a police officer now in today's world?
Like what the culture
In the
you mean?
environment that we have right now, the culture.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be.
I guess that's really what I meant
Is it?
I knew you could. It's more of would you,
Well, I'll give you an example. When I was in an undercover unit, there was they thought internal affairs was following us around. So I'm like, they're like, we got to be careful out there. I heard IA is out there following guys around. I said, so what?
Do your
Like,
job
what do you mean,
right.
so what? I said, he can ride in the car with me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change, because I knew I was doing things correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So you can follow me around all night if you want to. I'm not going to do anything that's going to get me in trouble. So even in today's day and age, now I'd have a hard time somebody getting in my face,
Yeah.
You know, and
Record
getting in my
you.
personal area,
Mm-hmm.
that's something I'd have, because that's kind of a two-edged sword with me, because I'm pretty good at close quarters combat, so I'm comfortable with someone being close to me because I know what I can do to you.
Yeah.
So that aspect of it doesn't really worry me. It's just it's just demeaning to have somebody in your face like that, and
Disrespectful.
and you
I
don't want
think.
them in your face, you know.
Right.
So that would be kind of hard for me to. But then again, that's what they want you to do. They want you to react.
Right.
They're in
Yeah.
your face because they want you to react. And I might say something like, "Your breath stinks," you know, just
Just be like, I'm not gonna kiss you.
you know, your breath stinks.
You're not my type.
You know, you need to brush your teeth. You know, I'd probably say something like that. You know, just, you know, but
You have beautiful eyes.
but I'm not worried about someone videotaping me arresting someone. Just like that video I was telling you about here that recently happened. I think it was it. I'm not sure where it was at. It's like Nashville or Georgia or somewhere. But a lot of times I watch videos and I see cops wrestling around with people, and I immediately critique their combat skills.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, if you had some more training and knew how to fight, you wouldn't be in a situation.
Right.
And there's a lot of situations, and I know that choking is kind of off the board for a lot of police departments, but choking is a very good technique. I mean, you do a blood choke on somebody, it's not that dangerous.
Very quick, too.
It's 10 seconds, they're out.
Yep.
And that gives you enough time to handcuff them or whatever. Because when you mace somebody, you're macing, like this video I was talking about, these cops, they maced each other. You know, and that always happens. When
Crossfire with mace.
you always get maced. In
Well,
the
disperses
process.
too, like
Yeah.
the whole area.
Oh,
is-
yeah.
Yeah. So well, pepper spray is a little bit different because pepper spray is an irritant to the area where the pepper spray is, but you still get some on you. You know, it's going to burn your skin no matter where it hits you. So, you know, I just look at guys, you know, combat skills, and I'm like, man, if you knew how to fight, this would have been a different situation. Because I've seen videos where the cop knew how to fight and it ended quickly.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
It's boring
You know.
because they're
Yeah.
competent.
So you have training to be a police officer, but you usually only go through training in the academy, and then you have in-service training once a year. So if you don't practice your skills outside of that once a year program, because I watched these guys in this recent video throwing punches, and I'm like, none of them knew how to throw a punch. You know, the guy threw a kick and he almost fell down. I'm like,
Dang.
you know, if they knew how to fight, and there was one cop at the very end, and if we had the video up, it'd be great, but I know we don't. That, you know, when you got somebody on the ground, the first thing I did, if there were cops on your torso trying to get you to get your arms behind your back and your feet were out, I would come and I would put one foot behind your knee and push the other leg up. And I would put my body weight on, so I had you controlled by your legs. So you can't get up if you control the legs. So and that would give the guys working on the upper body the arms to handcuff you.
Yeah.
Now there was one guy that did that. He'd come up and kind of picked up the leg, and I could just tell that they just were not.
That's weird that they wouldn't want to add on to their training if they're going to be in
Costs
a
money, and
situation like
They're
that.
already trying to cut the budgets of cops.
Well,
Sure, but you're putting yourself in a position of
but you know what we did?
potential danger. It's
Just like when I was in the military. When I was in the military, there were a bunch of us that were. I took my first martial art was Tang Sudo. Was the first martial art that I studied, and that was in Spain. But in Spain, we also had people that were versed in other martial arts. So we'd get together and we'd spar. When I went to Chanute, same thing. We had guys from all over the world coming there to train. And I trained with a Filipino guy. I trained with a guy from
don't get his race wrong.
Taiwan. He's Taiwanese. I trained with other Americans, and they all had different martial arts. And the Taiwanese guy, he's like, watch me. And the dude runs up the wall, does a flip, comes back down and goes, no, you try. I said, dude, I can't do that.
Your turn.
Watch me.
I can't do that. That's cool, but I can't do that.
That's hilarious.
So, it's just that. And then on the police department, I got together with guys that were wrestlers, guys that were, judo, jiu-jitsu, Russian sambo. I mean, I took Gojo Ryu and Bruce Lee's philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
We did Filipino Kali, stick fighting, which incorporated into my ASP.
Yep.
Incorporates into punch, knives, all that stuff. And we did a lot of Thai boxing, and we did Russian sambo. So I took everything that I have dabbled in over the years and just developed my own style.
Yeah.
I used to had a heavy bag in the garage, and I practiced power strokes. So that when I hit you, I had to do it one time.
Yeah.
And when they would ask me, how many times did you hit this guy? Hit him once. And I had a reputation on the police department as a martial artist, because I know one time we were having a bunch of robberies, and I was on East Livingston Avenue, and there's this guy in his car just crazy driving through traffic. I'm in an undercover car, and he's pulling in front of people, slamming his brakes on, brake checking people. And so I'm calling it out, and I'm following this guy, waiting for a cruiser to get there, and he pulls into an apartment complex. So I pull into and kind of, just back away from him, and he gets out, and he goes into the apartment building. So I get out, and I'm checking his car out. Eyes cannot commit a trespass. I'm not going inside his car. I'm just looking through the window. And in the back seat, I see a mask and a hammer, criminal tools. So I'm like, all right, what's this?
Unless
So I got my walkie-talkie in my hand, and we had the big brick walkie-talkies back then. So he comes out and he's like, hey, MFer, what are you looking in my car for? And I'm like, hey, I'm the police, and I'm reaching in my pocket to get my badge out. Well, as I'm reaching in my pocket, he's closing the distance on me. Now, I'm right-handed, but I can fight both ways. Mm-hmm. So he's coming up toward me, so I got this walkie-talkie in my hand. I'm like, oh, bam, fist pack. So I punch him in the chest. I don't punch him in the face. I punch him in the chest, and I knock him over the bushes.
A 2-pound
So
Motorola.
he goes over the bushes, lands, he's in the bushes, and there's these other people out there, and I got my badge out by then, and he's going, call 911. This cop's trying to beat me up, police brutality. And he's trying to get people to give him his phone. And one person calls 911 for him, and so, I got my walkie-talkie, and it's going out, and I get on there, and I can't remember what my call sign was back then. I think it was 1172 or something like that. I said, this is 1172. I'm here, Start a sergeant this way. So I asked for the precinct sergeant. Well, the precinct sergeant was a guy I knew. So he calls me on the phone. He goes, what's going on, Murph? And I tell him. He goes, well, we don't respond to that stuff anymore. It's got to be internal affairs. He goes, everything under control? I said, yeah. I said, just send somebody over here to give me some paperwork. Because I was going to write the guy for reckless operation and all this stuff. Because I can't make a traffic stop in a plain car, but I didn't really make a traffic stop. I observed what he was doing. So I'm going to write him up for the traffic stuff. And so I'm running reckless operations as an arrestable offense, but I'm not going to take the guy to jail. I'm going to summons him. So next thing I know, Internal Affairs calls me. And Internal Affairs are all sergeants. So the Internal Affairs sergeant calls me, and he was a guy that knew me too. He goes, what hospital? Well, actually, the first guy that called me goes, what hospital are you at? I said, I'm not at the hospital. He goes, well, you hit the guy, didn't you? And I said, because like if Murph hit the guy, he's in the hospital. So I'm like, no. I said, I punched him in the chest. He goes, oh, okay. So Internal Affairs guy calls, and he goes, what hospital are you at? And I'm like, I'm not at the hospital. He goes, you punched something, didn't you? He goes, Murph, you punched somebody, I think he'd be in the hospital. I said, he's not in the hospital. I punched him in the chest. So he goes, well, write up your report and send it to me. So I wrote my report up and to the IA guy, and the IA guy calls me and says, just like the guy I need in the face, he goes, you don't have anything else to add to your report, and I don't need to interview you. So because they knew me, and they knew that I wrote detailed reports, and the whole time I was on, I never got written up. And the only time I got written up was for an accidental discharge. So I never get written up, but I got a reprimand for an accidental discharge. But that's a story in of itself.
Do you do a superhero landing too?
Yeah. But the accidental discharge was we were working in an operation where there were a bunch of burglaries going on, and me and my partner were in a Ford Ranger, and he's
Gross.
driving, and he's a new guy, and he's a good friend of mine, and you know him, Drew's real dad. It's a joke. Buddy of mine,
Sorry, Debbie.
Our families were kind of Trey and his oldest son were friends when we were little, and you know, Drew has this jet black hair. Well, Rob has jet black hair, and Rob would always be like, it's my skid, right? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I said, when it comes time to go to college, I'll be giving you a call.
Right.
But anyway, I lost my thought.
Accidental discharge.
Oh, so Rob and I are working at operation. It's late at night. We're driving back in this alley, and Rob's driving past the business, and there's a guy breaking in the back door. I said, stop. So Rob slams on the brakes, but I had my, I carried my gun under my leg in the seat. So Rob's slamming the brakes on, and I'm grabbing my gun, and I'm also opening the door at the same time. Well, when he slams his brakes on, I kind of go forward like this, and my finger goes from the being along the barrel to me gripping the gun, and I hit the trigger. And I had powder burns. I mean, I almost blew my finger off of it, like a centimeter closer. But I had powder burns all over my hand. And, whoa. And the bullet didn't penetrate the door, but it shattered the window. The window was
Down.
I guess I clipped it or whatever with the window, and the door of the truck shattered. And you had this little dent sticking out, convex. Is it convex?
Yeah.
Sticking out? Convex
On the
dent
outside.
in the door where the bullet didn't penetrate. Well, the guy that was breaking into the business leaps like a cat in the air, hits the ground, and is running. And there's a couple other guys that were working the area too. They chase the guy, get him, and the guy's going, "There's people back in the alley, man. They're shooting at me, you know." And I was like, "Dude, that was me." You know, he goes, "What you shoot at me for?" And blah blah blah. And, you know. So anyway,
Man, you had to be like,
the other guys,
Right.
the other guys were like, "Man, this is our story. We have to come up with a story." I said, "Dude, we're not coming up with a story." I said, "It's a 6-month in your record reprimand for an accidental discharge. Nobody was hurt. You know, usually when you have an accidental discharge, it was either in the substation where somebody shot the ceiling with a shotgun, or they shot themselves."
Right.
Well, the lieutenant that shows up, he shot himself in Walmart. So he's like, "Man, Murphy," because I hate doing this, man, because it's an automatic reprimand. I said, "LT, don't worry about it, dude." I said, 6 months. I said, I'm just gonna have to deal with the ridicule and the humility of having an accidental discharge.
Right.
So that lasted for a month or so. People razzing you about that, but I'm like, it's not a big deal. So I never got in trouble on the police department. I did everything that I needed to do, and everything that I did, I was justified in doing it. So I didn't have to worry about we asked me about being a cop. In today's, I wouldn't worry about it because I would make sure. And I know that anything that I did, I was justified in doing, and I also had the compassion and empathy that I did what I needed to do to arrest you. But once you were arrested and handcuffed, it was over with. There's no need to do anything else. I won. You're in cuffs. You're going to jail. There's no, being mad and punching you in the face while you're handcuffed or.
You gonna run again?
Yeah, and that's what I was talking to you about earlier, is that contempt of cop thing. I've got to punish you for what you did. You're going to get punished because you're going to jail.
How dare you?
So it's just your mindset about things, and same thing when I was in the military. I never got written up in the military ever because I did my job. I didn't backtalk my sergeants. If someone had authority over me, unless you were asking me to do something dangerous or unlawful, I didn't. I had a guy one time that, this is in the military, that we'd get things on the flight line called hot cargo, explosives. We'd have situations to where we'd have to run to the flight line because we would have an A-10. You guys know what an A-10 Warthog is?
Yeah.
Plane has a giant gun, tank killer.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
And when you shoot it goes like this. It kind of stops the forward motion of the aircraft. And that's why you can only do a certain amount of bursts. And they have depleted uranium, armor-piercing 30 millimeter shells. Well, when that gun would jam on the flight line, it was an EOD situation, and you had to go out and get the depleted uranium shells off the airplane. Whoa. But when we get cargo that'd come in, dynamite and claymore mines and grenades and stuff like that, and you had to be qualified to go out and get the hot cargo. Well, I was one that was qualified. There were a couple other guys in our unit that were qualified. And I worked in a control center, so I wasn't allowed to leave because I was in control of the flight line. So if there was an issue on the flight line, they were missing bomb carts. Bomb carts are like shotgun shells, like things that kick the bombs off called MERS and TERS, the things that go on the airplane that dispense the bombs. Mm. So if one of those was missing, you had to shut the flight line down, because if it was in the fuselage of an airplane, then you're going to lose a multi-million-dollar aircraft and a pilot. So
yeah.
So we have to shut the flight line down. So there was this one night there was hot cargo, and somebody needed to go get it. There were 3 people on the list that were available. The one guy was in the barracks and he was drunk, so he couldn't go. I couldn't go because I couldn't leave the control center. And then there was a tech sergeant that was working at the NCO club as manager, kind of like a satellite job. And I called him, and he refused to go.
Nice.
So I've got to shut down the control center. And so got on the radio. I'm shutting down the control center to go get the hot cargo. And I get a call from the base commander. And I worked directly for the base commander. So my words were his words. So I didn't have the rank, but I had the authority.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Murphy, what's going on?" And I told him. He goes, "Hang on." So next thing I know, I'm getting a call from that tech sergeant. He's like, "Hey, I'm on my way out to get that hot cargo." And that dude, the next day, he's talking to my bomb dump commander, the chief, who's a chief master sergeant, E9, which is the highest rank you can get enlisted. So he calls me in the office, and he asks me what happened. And this guy's trying to get me in trouble. Well, it just turns into a big deal, and pretty much the commander, the guy had he was a tech sergeant. He had a line number for master, and the base commander said, "You're never going to make master sergeant here. So if you want to be a master sergeant, you need to leave my base." So that guy hated my guts. But the thing was, I did my job by the rules, and he didn't want to go do his job. And that's just my thing. If you do your job by the rules, realize that there are people above you, people that are your boss, whether you like it or not, unless they're asking you to do something dangerous or illegal, you have to do it. It's even though you know there's a better way to do it or a more efficient way to do it, you got to do it their way, because they're your boss.
Brandon, go and clog the toilet.
What's a toilet?
But that's just my thing, with policing. You do your job by the book, and it doesn't always mean that things aren't ever going to get hairy. There are just situations where it's just you're in a fight for your life, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Right.
If you're in a fight for your life, then anything goes. But you'll be able to justify that because, listen, I was going to die if I didn't choke this guy out, or I didn't,
right,
do this or do that. So it's just you've got to be able to discern those things, and plus, the use of force is a continuing wheel. And you'll see these in videos. and you can never, we called them clusters, cluster F, you know, you can never recreate a cluster for anybody because you weren't there.
Right.
You weren't involved in it.
Right.
You didn't take part in it. There's emotions that come into play. There's, you know, people react differently to different things, and you can never, in a court, you can never recreate it. I can't make you feel what I felt
Right.
at that time, but I can possibly get you to understand the situation. You know, this is like they have those civilian police training things that people go to.
Oh, like open their eyes.
They give you scenarios to understand that. You know, oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
Right.
Because it's real easy for me to say, well, you're a police officer and you should know how to do that and not be scared of that. No, you're a human being. And
Which gun's real?
right. Well,
Right.
I got a story about that. I got on a call of a kid in the front yard with a gun. Show up. There's a kid probably about 10 years old in the front yard with a black gun in his hand. I pull up and get out, and I take cover behind a tree, and I got my gun out. I'm not pointing it at him yet, and he's, you know, looking at me. And I said, you need to put the gun down. You know, I said, put the gun. He goes, it's a toy. I said, put the gun down and step away from it. So he puts the gun down. You know, if he'd pointed at me, I don't know what I would have done. You know, I had cover behind a tree. I might have let him take a shot, you know, and then decide what to do from there. But luckily it didn't move to that. He put the gun down. His mom comes outside. You know, she grabs him and she's, what's going on? I told her what was going on, and it was a squirt gun that he had painted black.
Mm.
So I explained to her what could have happened. She like starts smacking this kid upside the head. I'm like, he deserves it.
Was she Latino?
And no. And so I take there's a sidewalk right there. So I smash the toy. I just destroy it. And I'd sit down with him and talk to him and tell him, I said, you can't do that. You can't paint a squirt gun and make it look like a real gun. I said, because, you know, if it might have been a different cop, the situation might have ended up differently.
Right.
Right. Someone's scared.
And I'm not saying,
inexperienced.
you know, I was the be all to end all. I'm just different people react to things differently. So, you know, it's just one of those situations. And when I first came on the police department, I was in my coaching period, and we went on a run, and we're at the run, and this dude comes out of this apartment with 2 Uzis. I'm like, you know, my coach is going, no, it's a toy. This dude was wacko. And he would always come out with those squirt guns, you know, no red tips on them, you know, like he was. And I'm like, I was going to shoot this
You got to
dude.
be on the end to know that. Wow. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So-
he's Thomas. He does that every Tuesday.
Like, oh, yeah, that's just him. It's like,
I'm like, well, why does he still have those squirt guns?
yeah.
You know, he wouldn't have those squirt guns anymore. I'd take them away, but he'd probably go out and buy some more squirt. But unless you knew the situation,
Right.
you know, and I was like,
Don't shoot Terry.
yeah,
Holy cow.
Is that
But-
Neo from the Matrix?
yeah, but yeah, it's probably something like that. But there's just stuff like that you just don't know, you don't react to. I mean, it's just, you know, you got to be able to. I was going to kill a guy one time. We were working special duty in an apartment complex, and me and my partner up in the office, and we hear pow pow pow, a couple shots go off. So we're like going down steps, got into the parking lot. Get in the parking lot. There's this guy sitting in a car. So I'm coming. Let's say the car's right here. I'm coming from this direction. My partner's going around the front of the car. So I'm walking up, and I see the guy, and the guy sees me, and he leans over, and I see the gun on the seat, and he's reaching for it. So I'm like squeezing the trigger because I'm getting ready to shoot this guy before he can get his hand on that gun. But my partner walks into my line of fire.
Mm.
So I have to
Yeah.
back off, you know, and the guy sees me,
Oh,
sees my
God.
partner, and he puts his hands up in the air, you know, and get him out of the car and everything and get the gun. And I told my partner, I said, Carl, you saved that dude's life. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I was getting ready to shoot him, and I said, but you stepped into my line of fire and I had to, and that's what I'm talking about, the use of force. It's a continuing wheel, and you gotta, this millisecond, I might have the justification to kill you.
Right.
Yeah.
But the next one, I don't. And I've got to be able to pull back from that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to change gears and go from, somebody's got to die to, okay, now I don't have the authority or the justification to, and sometimes that's a split second between those two decisions, and it can go either way and really not be wrong.
Right.
So it's just you got to have a quick mind and
I was just gonna say that.
and be able to make.
Analyze and
You got to be really
Yeah.
in it.
You
You got to be paying attention.
Well-
it seems like.
That's like certain person that we all know. One asked me about being a cop, and I told him, I said, you're not geared for it. I said, because of your condition.
Mm.
I said, you can't make those
Great.
decisions.
Those split decisions where
Yeah, I said, it's just, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I've had other people ask me one of my nephews, and I said, it's not the job for you. You don't have the demeanor
Yeah.
to be able to do this job. Now, there are a lot of cops. No, I won't say a lot. There are
Shouldn't
some
be.
certain percentage of cops that don't have that ability either. That's why nowadays you go through a psychological exam, and a lot of people are off the list. But then there
Yeah.
are people that still make it through.
when did that become like implemented or common?
My class, which was started testing in probably mid 91. For Columbus was the first class to have to do the psychological.
So it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. Okay.
And a lot of people failed the psychological
Hmm.
because you take like 3 or 4 exams that ask you the same 100 questions in 3 or 4 different ways. And
Right.
they I guess they've got some sort of system where they look at your consistency to answering the questions, and then after you take the psychological, you have to go sit down with a psychologist, and the psychologist asks you some questions. Do some weird stuff.
Well, I guess good. I mean,
Well,
Ask
he
you-
like said, I sat down and they said, okay, and we'll give you a series of numbers, and
7.
I want you to
Team.
give them to me in reverse.
I'd be out.
And he'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and not have to do it reverse.
I would leave.
And I did it fine. And
I can't even do the alphabet, so.
so they did that, and then they asked you some questions from your psychological, and he goes, I got a question for you, a couple of questions on your psychological test. And I said, okay. And he goes, when you were asked if you loved your father, you said no. He's explained that. I said, well, love to me is past tense. I said, in my present, I still love my dad. I said, so, my dad's still around. So I said, to me, it's a past tense thing because I haven't stopped loving my dad. And he goes, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then he goes,
wrong. You're out.
You're out.
Out of here.
And
You're
then
not
he
cut
goes,
out.
well, I'm going to give you a phrase and you tell me what it means to you. I said, okay. He goes, shallow brooks are noisy. And I went, that's a weird question. I'm like, shallow brooks don't have a lot of water. So as they flow over the rocks, they splash and make noise. Because if it was a deep brook,
It's kind of
it'd be silent. And I said, that's, and he goes, well, that's kind of literal. I said, well, it doesn't mean anything philosophical.
Was he
Like,
kind of
what'd you-
say like,
I'm like, what do you want me to say? When I bite into a York peppermint patty, I get the sensation of being by a shallow brook. And he laughed. He goes, no. He goes, if you would have said that, I would have been like, oh, okay. I said, it doesn't mean anything to me.
the squeaky wheel gets the grease?
Yeah, and then he was like, can you kill somebody? And I said, if I had to. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't want to kill anybody. I said, but if I was put in a situation to where I had to kill someone, I said, that would be their fault because they forced my hand. I said, I'm not going to go become a cop saying, oh, can't wait to kill somebody, and
Finally, the day has come.
and he goes, well, I can't let you be a cop unless you say you can kill someone. And I said, well, I guess, I said, yes, I could. I said, if necessary.
Yeah.
I said, but it's not my goal. And he said, that's
Day
a good
7.
answer. Yeah, it's a good answer.
It's like, all right.
You know, and because I was, oh yeah, I'd kill somebody in a heartbeat.
Kill. I just did that yesterday.
That
All
probably-
right,
Where's the body?
your final test. You have to kill me right now.
I told him too. I said, I probably indirectly killed somebody in the military. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, when we bombed Libya the first time, you know, we launched part of that mission from the base I was at, and we put the bombs together. So,
Oh.
Did you sign them?
She's signed
Yeah.
it.
Did you have like a bond that you signed?
there are people that
Good
put like
Lord.
Kissing
to,
Kate Barlow.
to Gaddafi with love and stuff like
Really?
that.
It's
Holes.
yeah, holes.
Huh?
Kissing
But-
Kate Barlow.
What's that?
She like wrote her.
Rattlesnake
Yeah, she put her. Was her initials on the bullet or whatever?
lipstick
Oh.
tube.
Oh yeah. That's what it was.
Oh.
But you know, those are just some of the things that. I mean, there's a whole process to testing for a police department. It's all a pass and fail type thing. Like when I showed up for the initial exam, there was like 3,000 or 4,000 people, maybe 5,000 people at OSU because they were hiring 300 cops.
Like an entrance exam.
Yeah, it's just the first exam.
Tuning exam.
Yeah.
Weed them out quick.
Yeah, half of them are gone. They have no comprehension. They can't read.
Right.
You know, so in that day you took several exams, and I remember them pretty distinctly. One of them was you had a facial recognition exam, to where they gave you these faces, and you had to remember them.
I'd fail.
And then they would give
I'd be
you
good
a
at that.
sheet that had like the noses and the ears and stuff and the eyes,
You
Mm.
fill
and
out
you
the
had
list.
to determine which nose, eyes, and ears went with what picture.
That's hard.
Because in your nose changes over time,
Mhm.
but and so do your ears, but they pretty much stay.
Like the symmetry.
Similar.
or-
You know, the eyes don't really. I mean, with age, everything changes a little bit, but there were certain things you had to key on and to recognize the face. And then they gave you this picture as for your spatial short-term memory skills, and it was a picture of like a town square, and there was a tower with a clock on it. There was a bus that had a number on it. And there were, old guy, with a cane, and a lady. I still remember a lady pushing a baby carriage. There were several cops there. Some of them had their hats on. Some of them had their hats off. So they didn't tell you what to look for, but they wanted you to study that picture. They gave you like 5 minutes to study that picture, and then they took it away from you. And then you had to take some other tests, and then they gave you a test, and you had to answer questions about that picture. What time was it on the clock tower? How many cops had hats on their heads? How many babies were in the baby carriage? Were they twins? Or, so you had that. What was the number on the bus? So, and that was for the ability to where if you get in a situation and you're in the heat of it, and then afterwards, now you got to write a report, so you got to remember all that stuff. So there's just tests and stuff like that, written tests and interviews, and so it was a whole process, pass or fail. They give you a letter to go to the next step if you passed.
Guys think you could kill someone if you had to?
I have a lot of guns and a lot of rooms in my house, so.
It's hard to answer that because
Have you gone hunting?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing that
Many a
Kinda
squirrel and deer.
grooms someone to be able to kill a human being is if they hunt,
Yeah.
because you're
Like
already
taking
used to
that
killing.
life.
And
I
so-
mean, it's hard when you're a kid.
Yeah.
For me, it was the first time.
Well, I went hunting with my grandpa, had a deer in the sights, and I couldn't pull the trigger
Yeah.
because I didn't want to kill it. So
Yeah.
he shot it.
It's a different switch in your brain.
Well, I think it teaches respect too. Like you're taking that life. Like
Where I got a Daisy BB gun for Christmas when I was like 9 years old.
the neighborhood was never the same.
And my grandpa said, you can shoot any birds you want except for robins or starlings. Or not starlings, but robins or redbirds.
Cardinals?
Cardinals.
Okay.
So starlings, blackbirds, you can shoot
Yeah,
all
'cause
of you
they're
wanted to.
pests.
So
Kill him.
there was, blackbirds land on a wire. I'd shoot a blackbird, no big deal. Because I'm allowed to kill those because they're nuisance birds. And then I'm shooting blackbirds, when they land on the wire in a tree. And this robin lands down by the tree. And I'm like,
Should I take the shot?
I shot that robin. And the BB nicked the top of its head and just kind of crushed its skull in.
Oh.
So that robin is flapping around on the ground, screaming. I'm like, oh, I'm freaking out. I run down there and I stomp that bird to death. And I threw my BB gun down and I went on the back porch and I'm just crying. Crying. My grandpa's like, what's Grandpa Dickerson, he's like, what's going
shoot
on?
yourself?
I said, I killed Rob. And I never shot another bird after that.
Yeah,
I was
that's-
traumatized. Because the bird was just like, I just like freaked out because I damaged this bird to where it was screaming and then I killed it.
Curb stomp.
You had to like brutally like stomp it with your foot.
I was traumatized
Oh,
by
man.
that. Yeah. After that, I was like, I didn't shoot at any other birds or
Killed it with your body part. instead of with the
anything.
gun.
Yeah, I was like, I just committed a murder.
Yeah.
It's bad.
I shot birds a lot. I ate a pigeon breast once. I killed it and I took the breast out and cooked it. It was not good.
No,
Mm-mm. It tasted like liver.
some people hunt
A lot of
pigeons.
bird.
Yeah,
It's
and eat
similar to
'em.
that. Yeah.
Killed a possum once for no reason.
Now I've killed.
with a rock.
I've
and-
killed things. Remember that possum we killed at APS?
We were doing like we were doing a jaw.
You
Yeah.
like smacked it with the 2x4?
Yeah, I mean I've killed things like that. I mean, but that's I didn't
That's
have a problem
very
with
different.
that.
It's
Especially-
not. It's not out of. It's not malicious.
we didn't
though.
get anything from it.
Possums are evil anyway. It's scary.
It's
They're-
not,
they're
it's not like you're like,
gross,
oh,
they're-
there's a possum out
Yeah,
there. I just wanna
giant-
kill
Yeah,
it."
yeah. There's
I'm
a
gonna get
possum.
him.
Giant monster rat.
Wait for my chance to rip it in half with my teeth.
Yeah. I dissected a frog once when I thought it was dead, but it wasn't.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was. I pinned it to a board, and I took a razor blade, and I kind of, I was in high school and we dissecting stuff in
Yeah.
I never got to do
biology
that.
class.
Man,
So I wanted to
I did.
dissect this frog, so I went to cut it, and I guess there's like 2 layers of skin on a frog. There's a clear layer underneath the outer skin, and I just cut that outer skin, and I peeled it back, and its heart and stuff was still beating. It was
Oh
like,
no.
so I killed it real quick.
like, oh crap.
Sorry, dude.
But yeah, I mean, I took its stomach out and wanted to see what. I mean, I was just curious,
What'd you eat,
Yeah.
little buddy?
So then you
I'm not Jeffrey Dahmer.
went up to like
Um,
the next a bigger animal and
Right.
eventually made your
Oh,
way
well,
to
we
people.
when I was in high school, we got a groundhog that was hit and brought it into class, and the teacher let us dissect it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What's like in high
Back in the
school? I
good old
did.
days.
We did an earthworm, then we did a frog,
Hmm.
and then we did a squid. Some kind of like
We went to dumb school.
Yeah, we went to stupid school, I guess.
I don't know what kind of squid it was. It was a really small, long one.
Yeah, but
Dead.
did you take college prep or business courses?
Neither.
See,
No,
when I
no.
was in high school, you could take college prep, which were harder classes, or you could take business, or you could take general. Now,
But I wasn't a very good
and
student.
they
We went to
were
tech school,
they were
too.
exactly what they meant.
Yeah.
College prep was prepping you for college. You didn't get any like today. You get college
Right.
credits and stuff.
Yeah.
There was none of that. But they were harder. You took the sciences. If you took business, then you took business math, and
Disgusting.
if you were general, you just took the required classes to graduate.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's get me
So
out of
my
here.
freshman year, I took college prep, and I figured out there was too much homework, and I was playing sports. I'm like, next year I'm taking business, and business was very easy, But I had biology my freshman year, and I did well in biology.
I don't think biology was even offered.
I don't remember, to be honest with you.
We had biology 2, and chemistry.
We didn't have
then you
any of
had-
that.
And you had physical science.
Yeah, my
We
senior
had
year-
physical science
Yeah.
and
My
earth
senior-
science. Like,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had zoology, so I took zoology my
Well,
senior year.
there was a lot more options for your age group than, because when I was in high school, it was just, you had to have so many credits to graduate, and
Right.
vocational school was
That's what I was gonna ask.
not really an escape from high school.
Kind of
But-
was
It
for
kind of
us.
was for us.
Well, but Drew went to Eastland Fairfield. You still had to take science and
Yeah.
math, because when I
But it
went
was
to
for the dumb
vocational
kids.
school, it was really dumbed down. I mean,
I
it
feel
was.
like ours was too.
I didn't even take algebra.
I mean, the English class was like just
I'm sorry, Miss
kindergarten.
Williams.
I mean, it was really bad, and then you had to take. I took machine shop, so we had a math course. So you had to do geometry and some trig, and so you had to be. I sucked at math, so it was really hard for me, but I passed. But the English and the other stuff, was just like we had to take to graduate. You had to have a government class. I like ace that. I got like an A. It wasn't, it wasn't hard. The English was really, really easy. I remember the English teacher going. She wanted to talk to me after class one day. And she goes, "Why are you here?"
Uh-huh.
And I said, "What do you mean? Why am I here?" And she goes, "You're too smart to be in vocational school." And I'm like, I want to be a machinist.
And you said you're too hot to be my teacher.
Mr. Valet told me that. I had the highest reading level in the school, and he's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
It's like, "I don't want to be here. What do you mean? What am I doing?"
Well, I had the counselor one time because we had to take. Did you guys take IQ tests in school?
I don't think so.
Mm-mm.
We did.
I don't think so.
We did. And the counselor one time, I'd gotten in a fight. There's this guy who's picking on a girl on the bus, and this is a vocational school. And when he got off the bus, I was behind him down the steps, and when he got to right level, I kicked him in the face. But
Hey,
Waiting for the timing too. Like,
Right.
yeah, I'm like, bam, poof. And actually, this guy was in the police academy with me.
No way.
Yeah.
Did you kick him in the
it's-
face again?
Well, when we did
he got revenge. Yeah.
boxing was called Hell Week, and this guy told another guy to ask me. He said, "Hey, he wants to know if during Hell Week, if you get him matched with him, are you going to try and knock him out?" And I said, "Definitely." Yeah. So I said, "I'm going to knock him out," but he never got me. But
Were you supposed to knock people out, or
well, if you got knocked out during boxing week, you got knocked
Like
out.
boxing week, are
Oh.
you going?
it wasn't like a goal, like
Well,
knock this individual out?
No, it was. You were supposed to give it your all. I mean, because there's a lot of people in there that have never been in a fight.
That's true.
Right, you gotta.
So you
prepare.
gotta.
That would be
you gotta
so
know what
much
it's like
fun.
to be in a fight. And we had a lot of really good fighters. And the day that we were starting the Hell Week, the instructor said, "Is there anybody here who's got boxing experience?" So I kickboxed in the military with some people, and down there were some matches you could go to, and I don't say it was underground fighting, but you could fight in Zaragoza. So I fought a couple of times there, and I did a couple of tough man contests in the U.S. and in Illinois. I did one. I was trying to win money to buy a motorcycle, and your mom went. She's like, "You're never doing that again." And anyway, so me and this other guy, he was in the Army, and he was a boxer in the Army, so we boxed, and everybody was watching. And it was we agreed that, hey, listen, let's make this an exhibition match. Let's, if I give you an opening, take it. And so we had a pretty good boxing match.
Hell Week boxing.
Hell Week boxing,
Female.
female.
Yeah, start that part over.
Yeah. So during Hell Week, I got messed up with a female, Alicia. She was really scared, and the commander for the academy, he was like, "Murph, don't hurt her, but let her know she's been in a fight." I said, "Okay." So
So yeah, it's just like
so as females go, and compared to some of the males, physically she was stronger than she could have kicked the butt of some of the guys in the class.
Like pound for pound.
Yeah, I mean, well, so you had to do so many push-ups, so many sit-ups in a minute and a half. I think in a minute and a half, I did like 115 push-ups,
Good Lord.
and then there were quite a few guys that were doing a lot of push-ups.
I could do 10 right now. That's about it.
And and you had to do the minimum requirement was like 25. You had to do 25.
Right.
You had to do like 30 sit-ups.
Overachiever.
It was just
Very loose.
yeah. If you were a guy and you couldn't do that, dude, you were a wimp. You know, I mean, it's a lot harder when you're heavier to do. I mean, I don't know if I could do 20 push-ups right now because, for one, my shoulders are destroyed.
If I did 10,
Now I
I'd be
can
down
do
for a
100. I can do 100, 120 on steps, you know, because I'm reducing that weight. But just straight push-ups on the floor, you know, my shoulders are so destroyed. I don't know if I could do it, not because of the strength, but because of the pain.
Mm.
But she did like 44 push-ups. She did like 60 sit-ups. So as females go, she was way above the margin for females. So I'm boxing her, and she always put her head down. Every time she put her head down, I'd hit her with an uppercut. And she nailed me a couple times. She hit me in the stomach once, and it took the wind out of me. Now, if you're a boxer and you're used to sparring, you get hit in the stomach, you know, you don't panic. Because when you panic is when you fall on the floor.
Relax it out.
So you just, and if you're a singer, it's a lot easier to take that shot because you work that diaphragm all the time. So you take the shot and you relax and you get your air back and you keep fighting. So she hit me and, you know, took the air out of me, but nobody knew because I was used to taking shots in the stomach and I could deal with it. So, you know, she would, you know, do something, I'd punch her, and, you know, I wasn't going, I'd maybe going 30% my power.
Was it the first time you hit a woman?
Yes, first time I felt bad
Pretty
too.
exciting.
Yeah, you know, beating a woman up.
Yeah.
But
Oh no.
but the next
Canceled.
day we go to class, and she goes, I was so scared when I was fighting you, and I said, well, you know, Sergeant Beer told me not to hurt you. I said, but I was, you know, just trying to let you know what it's like to be in a fight. And she's like, I'm glad you didn't try her because it was scary. I said, well, hey, I said, listen, you did a good job. You nailed me because she was going full bore. I said, you nailed me a couple of times, and I felt it. I said, you knocked the wind out of me once. She goes, I did? And I said, yeah. She felt a lot better about herself. And she was large-breasted. And she goes, my boobs are bruised. I said, what? I was like, let me see.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh. Yeah. So I was just joking around with her. But, you know, she just, you know, she did a really, because I would have liked to have her for backup than some of the guys because I knew she was going to fight. And I knew that if she was in a situation on the street that she was going to be able to give, because there was a couple girls in class, and not to bash females, but I don't care how well trained you are. If you're 120, unless you're Jenjinko or whatever that girl's name is in UFC, they could kick me in the head.
Right.
If you're one of those high-level female fighters, but still, if I outweigh you by 150 pounds, I get you on the ground. I'm sorry.
Physically,
there's not a whole lot you're going to be able. Because I used to, like I said, we'd wrestle with guys in the police academy in the evenings to keep up our skills, and I was wrestling this one. And he was a high-level collegiate wrestler, and he weighed like 165 pounds. And at that time, I was like 240, 250. And he goes, I don't understand, man, why I can't do anything with you, and you know, and you get me down on the ground. I said, dude, I outweigh you by 100 pounds. I said, I don't care how skilled you are. You know, I get you on the ground, unless you can bench 400 pounds from a position like this, I said, you're not going to be able to move me. I said, it's just the way it is. I said, you're more skilled than I am. Yeah. I said, I have some skill, but, you know, I'm not a novice, but I'm not a collegiate level wrestler.
Reminds me of, there's a fight in One Punch Man, and Saitama is just, he's indestructible. Nobody can hurt him. And he goes up against like a really strong martial artist. Saitama has no fighting skills. And I think his name is like Soyotaro or something like that. He's just doing all these fancy moves and like hitting Saitama, and he's like punching Saitama into the ground, and Saitama just like stands up like nothing happened. That's what I'm thinking.
I love that part.
Why is Saitama indestructible?
He's a
It's just part of the character.
He's a parody character.
Yeah, it
so
started as kind of satire, but it's like still great. Even though
I
it's
know. I've
satire.
watched some of the. He's just an idiot.
his power
Yeah.
is that he has no limit. So
Yeah, it's just
and when someone is close to him, he just exponentially exceeds whatever.
Gotcha.
I love him.
But yeah,
It's
sorry,
freaking
tangent.
great. It's one of Spencer's favorite, actually.
Yeah, but I
Really
mean,
is.
being a cop, fighting skills is a big plus. I mean, it's a big plus in any. Like, I mean, I couldn't. When I was younger, I think if the UFC was around, I think I could have done okay. You know, I would have improved. But the way people are now, their skill levels, because it used to be years ago, people had one specialty. But now there are people that are well versed in everything.
Right.
Now, I'm well versed in a couple of different things, but it's just having fighting skills is a huge plus. You know, there's a lot of guys that just don't know. I think maybe more so now, but it's important to be able to
It's like I said at the
be able
beginning.
to fight.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it's so weird that if you're going to go into an occupation where you could potentially
Oh, you're going to get in fights.
exactly
Yeah.
that you wouldn't want to like be like, all right, I need to be on top of this a little bit because I want to win.
I mean, there's over-
Yeah, you might never get in a shootout, but you're definitely going to get in a fight.
So it's just weird to me. I don't know. It just makes sense why they wouldn't.
There's overachievers and underachievers.
and
in every
sometimes
job.
you're going to be fighting more than
True.
one person.
But it's their life. It's their potential. How are you not like? Okay, this is my life though.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, like, you know, I think all of us would probably have.
I know
that
Trey doesn't feel
mentality.
that way.
I mean,
But I'm just
conditioning. If you're not a great fighter, but you're well conditioned, I might be able to outlast you.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, because once your fatigue hits, your strength is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, so like I chased a guy one time, and I'm just keeping him in sight,
Yeah.
trucking
chilling.
along.
He's
Yeah.
burning out.
He's like running, keeps looking back. And I'm just jogging. He's running, looking back, and finally I catch up to him. He just leans over the back of the car and puts his hands behind his back.
I'm done.
He's like, all right, whatever.
That's more or less what it was. I handcuffed him and I said, "Man, why'd you stop?" And he's like, "I kept looking back and you were still there." And I was like, "I'm never going to get away from this guy." And he goes, "I was just too tired to quit going, so I just stopped."
I could respect that.
You know?
Yeah,
I was
he's
like-
like, he's like, all right.
You
I said,
win,
"Well,
dude.
I was just
Knew he was
pacing you,
beat."
dude. I said
Yeah.
I knew I was in good shape, and I knew how to pace myself. And 'cause that's the same thing about fighting and boxers. You know, that's how those guys can last so long. They pace themselves
Yeah.
Right.
because you can, blow your wad in 30 seconds if you go out there. It's just you expend a lot of energy in a fight,
I would have seconds right now of like
Oh.
usable energy. Like
Dude.
that's it.
dude.
Like in a fight right now, I'd be like, I gotta
Wrestling.
end this quick.
Wrestling, man, you
Right
gotta
here,
be
right
in
now.
such good condition for wrestling.
I
Wrestling's
hated wrestling
Because you're like
practice.
resisting
I
and like
hated wrestling too.
pulling and like constant muscle activation.
But that's why you see
I
these
hate
guys in the
running,
UFC.
so.
They say you hear them, the commentators. No, he's just got to relax in this position, which is true. You just got to relax, and figure out what you're doing.
Just
and,
relax, Spencer.
Focus on your breathing or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's all. I was going. If you guys want to, I'll flip to the funny story. We get called to this house, and just the family's inbred.
Oh.
I mean,
They're all inside of bread?
yeah, they're inbred.
Wonder Bread.
We get there, and the one kid, has got glasses this thick, and the other one's got one eye going this way, and one eye pointing forward. And then one kid that kept running away all the time was normal.
Oh
He
boy,
wanted out.
that poor
So,
kid.
Yeah, looked normal.
That poor
Dad
kid.
looks kind of weird. Mom looks kind of weird, and the kids are all arguing, and they had weird names too. So the kids are all arguing, and the one kid goes, "She just doesn't like us because Mom and Dad are brother and sister."
Oh my god.
And I was like,
Oh my
and I look at my partner, I'm
gosh.
like, "What?" And
Oh, no.
and I was like, I was just like,
In shock.
yeah, I was like, okay. And this was in a decent part of the city too, nice house, and I was just like,
It's
Okay.
not something you think
I said,
of.
this can't be real.
Yeah.
So
Time to
my partner's
euthanize
talking to the mom and dad, and I'm talking to the kids, and the one kid's name was Feather.
That's feather and that's shoelace.
And I'm like, Feather?
That's pillow.
I said, how did you get the name Feather? I'm like, are you guys, Native American? They obviously weren't. But
From the Pale Tribe.
she said, well, my mom said that when I was born, a feather landed on my head, and they called me Feather. And I'm like,
Oh, you're
boy.
air.
okay.
All right. You're
When
bloody.
you breathe the oxygen.
And the other kid's name was Rain.
No.
And this was the normal kid. Normal kid's name was Rain. She said when she was born, it was raining, and rain landed on her forehead. And the kid's name was
Oh my
Rain.
god.
I dated someone that was named with that mentality.
Yeah.
Oh.
Really?
So I can, so I can see that.
Well,
What month is it?
the last kid's name was Brick. And I said, how'd you get the name Brick? And the kid goes, that's not true. The inbred story's true, but the kid's name's not true. Debbie told me a joke. She was laughing her butt off last night.
Because a brick landed on his forehead?
Yeah, and she told me a joke, and I'm like, I'm going to use that in the podcast tomorrow.
Pretty good.
I'm going to use one of the stories to lead up to it. But the kids were they were an inbred family.
That was good.
Actually, the mom was
Disgusting.
his first cousin. So they were first cousins that got married, and the
boy.
kids were jacked up except for the one kid. And me and my partner left that house. And I'm like, man, alive. And
That's crazy.
The one kid kept running away because she wanted to get away
Yeah.
from the inbred family.
Free me
Yeah.
from this.
So I
That's
was
like
just
a-
like, we left that house going, man, alive. We'd heard about stuff like that, but I'd never.
We're not in West Virginia.
First cousins getting married, and the gene pool's a little too close there. So it was funny. So I figured I'd kind of throw that joke in there.
Wow.
Yeah,
I did not catch on at all.
you didn't.
No, I
I
didn't either.
thought you were.
I didn't.
No.
Because
I
you
was-
went, like, okay, I've heard this.
When you said brick, I thought this is going to end really badly, but I thought it was a real badly.
I'm not used to being lied to, so I just believed
Oh,
you. From the
I didn't.
bottom of my heart.
When I was in the detective bureaus and I interviewed people, I didn't really lie. But you're allowed to mislead people. So a lot of times I'd come into the interview room with a big file. It's like my fake file.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have a fake fingerprint card and stuff. And, I'd lay that down and I'd open it up and kind of lay some documents.
spill
just
it
be
all.
looking at
And
stuff.
they'd be
like,
looking at
this is
stuff
all we
and
got on you, buddy.
Right.
I'd be like, and they'd be like, what's all that stuff? I said, well, what do you think it is?
You tell me.
Well, it looks like there's fingerprints. Yeah. So where do you think we got those from?
McDonald's.
And
Genius.
I'd be like, well, I said, yeah. I said, I know whose fingerprints these are too. So they'd be
Right.
thinking like, what? And you already had them in there because you had enough probable cause to arrest them anyway.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'd lawyer up. Sometimes they would just be like, oh, okay, man, did it. And
It was me.
And I had one guy that, and a lot of times criminals too, they are comfortable with the truth. You tell them the truth, ask them about what they did, they can just be comfortable with it and lie. But then you accuse them of something they didn't do, and they go off.
Get
Unhinged.
upset.
Yeah. So I had a guy one time, I was interviewing him. He was lying. He's changed his story like 4 times in the whole interview. He was here, but no, now he was there. And now, and so I made up this lie about him. He goes, I didn't do that. He goes, I might have did the other stuff, but I didn't do that. I was like, oh, thank you very much.
Right. See ya.
We got it.
funny.
But I mean, I got all kinds of stories.
I've got some
Did you ever-
pride.
More than you guys have time to hear.
Did you ever get a false confession about something serious?
Like a
Like-
witness was led or
I
something?
didn't get a false confession, but I got a false ID. And it wasn't really intentional, but there's this girl, she was at a club and
Her name was Brick.
her name was Brick. Her ex-boyfriend was there with another girl. So she starts running her yak, and saying stuff and, saying, oh, I was better with him than you are and all this. And so everything gets heated and end up behind the establishment and the girl gets beat up. Well, she gets maced and punched, and while she's laying on the ground, somebody stomps on her leg and breaks it.
Mm.
Oh.
And she somehow it came out that the girl was like, well, you know, you get my brother, we got to get my brother out of here. So the girl that got her leg broke knew this family and knew who the brother was. So I'm interviewing her, talking to her, you know, and yeah, she's kind of started the fight and everything, but, you know, somebody stomping on her leg was a little bit too far, and they're going to charge the guy with aggravated assault because she got a broken bone. So I put a photo array together, had the brother in it, took the photo array to her, and she picks her brother out. So I'm like, all right, so I'll file charges on him, get a warrant for his arrest, and things are going on. I'm interviewing, you know, I'm trying to get the brother, and the brother's calling in. The sister's going, my brother wasn't there. It wasn't my brother. You know, so, well, who was the guy that was there? She said, well, that's my stepbrother. Well, the victim didn't know the stepbrother, had never met the stepbrother. She picked the guy out of the photo array and she never saw who stomped her leg.
She just heard people saying.
She just heard say, get your brother out of here.
Ah.
So she ID'd him because of her hearing the brother.
Right.
Now, lo and behold, I mean, kind of made sense. But once I figured out that there was the other brother there, and I researched the brother that I filed charges on, and he was at work.
Mm.
So I went down and had the charges. We had never arrested him yet. Had the warrant canceled, and then talked to the girl some more, and she's just lying,
Just to get the one guy.
just to get the one guy, and I just dropped the whole case. I'm just like, I'm not pursuing this any further, you know. And the one brother said that he didn't stomp on her leg, you know. And I found out from the doctors that the girl was a drug addict, which makes your bones brittle.
Yeah.
So
He could have tripped on her.
she kind of fell, I guess, and broke her leg, and
Mm.
so so it was just a big mess. And the Franklin County was never going to, at the time, Ron O'Brien, he was a good guy, but he wanted a nailed shut case before he would send anything to the grand jury. And because Columbus was kind of unique, it's called a charter city. I could file felony charges, but all felony charges have to go to the grand jury. Grand jury reviews the case and either supports the charges that you charge the person with, no bills, which means kicks it out, or they come up with, because there's an attorney that's on the jury too, and they go ahead and approve or file different charges. So I never had a case no bill. So it's just the way the system works.
Yeah.
But different jurisdictions, different police departments have to go through the prosecutor's office to file a charge. I could file a charge on you that night if I had the probable cause to do it, and it's just a little bit different. And plus, being a detective in Columbus, you do the entire case. The packet and the investigation is all done by you. Now, in other counties, the prosecutor does the investigation. You help him, but the prosecutors don't. So
Builds
pretty
it
much
out.
did the lawyer's job for him.
Right.
So when they presented a case or tried a case in Franklin County, it was all tried on everything you did out of your felony packet. So you pretty much were in charge of the investigation. From sometimes the attorneys would ask for a couple of different things, but you were the investigator. You were the one that filed the charge. So it was fun. You got to learn. I mean, patrol is one aspect of the job. Being a detective is a completely different job. I mean, it's still crime, but your patrol is here now. You know, detective bureau is a little slower. You know, and it's just like an intact team, an entry team goes in and grabs everybody and arrests everybody and detains everybody inside the house when you're doing a drug raid. SWAT is slow and methodical, and it's a little bit different. They still do entries, but they're stepping back and being a little more tactical about stuff than an entry team would do. But some jurisdictions only have a SWAT team that does everything, but Columbus is unique because we had an intact team, We had a SWAT team. We had the unit. I was on the enforcement unit, and so a lot of the stuff we did overlapped, but we did different. There was different aspects of the job, but there's kind of a lot of redundant things in Columbus, but they've kind of gotten rid of that. There's, instead of having burglary and robbery, and they now have a major crimes unit where you do everything. So kind of like bigger cities is kind of geared toward that. So things have changed since I retired. So.
World just keeps moving on. Just like I think
It
this.
wasn't a bad thing. I mean,
Neither is the end of the podcast.
Just like I think this podcast should move on to the next episode, which will not be right now. Will be.
You'll see it in a week.
You'll see it in a week, and I hope you like it. This was a good podcast.
It was.
And I think we could. I think we'll consider putting you on the docket again.
I'm going to start my podcast again.
Cops Continuum.
Ooh, yeah.
Cops Continuum.
We'll be just on
where-
Spotify. We'll also
It's where I
be on YouTube.
review current arrests and social situations involving police
Where can it be
officers.
found?
Body cam videos, all that stuff.
Right now, just on YouTube. So at
So you're not
Cops Continuum.
Not doing Spotify again.
No. I mean, I don't know how many. I might.
I don't know. I listen to it on Spotify.
I might put it on Spotify too. But
yeah, YouTube.
with critiquing videos, it's you kind of got to see the video.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So.
And I
Nice.
like that. Eventually, what we want to have is a way to watch videos, like here while we're on the podcast,
Right.
and we can like watch them together.
Well, that's what I do. I do the video, and then I'm down in the corner,
right.
and I'll
Yeah.
pause it, and
Yeah.
But it'd be fun if we had them on again.
yeah.
We would do one.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I found a video I really wanted you to see and you hadn't seen it yet.
Well, one thing I thought about you guys might want to do is you get a video, and then you guys look at it and critique it from a civilian point of view, and then I'll do it from a police point
Yeah,
of view.
that would be fun.
Yeah. You could do
Compare the-
segments on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Anyway, y'all, thank you so much for watching. You've made it to episode 7.
Thank you for
Steve-O.
joining us.
Thank you for
Steve-O,
having
thanks
me.
you for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Steve-O, yeah.
I think Steve-O is our imaginary friend because he doesn't know us.
He's in the portal with Bus Guy.
Bus guy and girl.
Bus
Yeah.
guy
Steve-O.
and girl,
He's
and
in
then
the Lala.
Steve-O's in there.
Steve-O's in the Lala.
Guys, did you hear about the one thing? I'm gonna do
sorry.
this trick really
Should have
quick.
Drew on and ask him what it's like to be an elf.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. I think he'd make a really he'd transition pretty easy.
To an elf.
What on
I don't know on that.
It's been a good episode. We will
Drew,
see you guys in
Drew,
a
if you're
week.
listening,
He'd be the ripped elf.
he'd be freaking cut. He's vascular. I'm gonna end it on that.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye.